This was supposed to be a fairly regular topic to celebrate rising stars, but the last time we did it was back in 2021, and we sit here at the start of 2024, being a little bit delinquent, and that's not because of a lack of material, a lack of places, producers, distilleries to celebrate, not at all. It's just that we had other things cluttering up the vPub schedule, so it's been a long time for us to get round to tackling this again. However, I'm going to share with you the four distilleries that we talked about being rising stars back in 2021. And there's been that lovely chunk of time in between so that we can look at those four and work out whether they were indeed rising stars. From then on, we'll go on to talk about four, maybe five, maybe more rising stars that I think deserve to be talked about right now. And even then, my goodness, we could talk about quite a few more. But let's be optimistic. This could actually still be a serial. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. And I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to Thursday night. I hope you're all doing very well, as always. This Rising Stars thing was supposed to be a wee bit of a serial event, maybe an annual event, something like Pete Fest or the Ignored series or various other wee things that we like to kind of do from time to time to celebrate things that are going on in the whiskey landscape around us. Back in 2021, we were able to enjoy a wee session. I think it was quite a popular session from memory. We were able to look at distilleries that were kind of almost, you had the sense that they had our backs as enthusiasts, right? A lot of producers seemed to kind of price themselves out of our focus. They maybe kind of changed their positioning. They just kind of moved away from us, and things that we used to once love, we felt like it was becoming more and more difficult to connect with. It's usually a branding issue and a positioning and going after bigger markets and things. I think it's a natural progression for businesses, right? But whiskey's not just a business, is it? Whiskey's a very, very visceral, emotional thing. So we had to kind of look for things that were going to step into the space, the wake, the vacuum that they were leaving. And there's been plenty of that, as it turns out. So that's what we're going to spend tonight's vPub session talking about. We're going to celebrate the things that we can put our hands on today, that we can reflect that maybe just a few years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, certainly back in 2021 when I did this original Rising Stars episode, this original vPub topic, wouldn't have been on the radar much at all. But as we sit here in 2024, lots and lots of things have changed, and they very much are. Caveat, full disclaimer right at the opening here. I put this out to patrons, and I asked my patrons to, I've been loving seeing the comments coming in from them. I asked them to share what they felt were their list, and it made me confident about the ones I'm going to share with you tonight, confident that they're already aware of them, but also confident that maybe I had 1 or 2 wee surprises to something that's interesting for me to talk about. But it also made me anxious that there's so many distilleries to celebrate, things that you guys are connecting with today in 2024 that you didn't 2 years ago, 3 years ago or more. That it made me realize that, there's going to be just a lot that is just not going to come up tonight. It is not an exhaustive list. Hopefully, if I don't talk about it, you guys are talking about it in the chat, or after the stream's over, you can use the comment section underneath, and you can share with the entire community your own experiences and opinions with distilleries that are on the up and up. Anyway, before we get into all of that, I'm going to do what we always do as you're pulling up your bar stool as you're settling yourself with a dram, if you're kicking off your shoes, getting your feet up, whatever it is you're doing, settling either live with us tonight or on the replay, get comfortable, pour something delicious, please. Get yourself nice and settled for the next hour or so, so that we can hang out in our sacrosanct little space of whiskey time on a Thursday night and enjoy ourselves. Welcome, everyone. Cheers. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your support. Amazing. I've got one of the distilleries in the glass right now. I've got 6 Glencairns laid out in front of me, so I'll have 6 drams. It's a very good whiskey. It's very good whiskey. I mean, it's not like the best whiskey you've ever had, but it's surprisingly good considering how I had it framed in my head. Anyway, we'll get to talking about that a wee bit later. I've got 6 glasses in front of me, and that way I know that I'm going to have 6 drams tonight. And if I start pouring on top of pouring into a dirty glass, then I'm having more than that kind of thing. A wee confession that I'm going to share with you. Last week, I did a session with Inverurie, a whiskey shop, a live stream first, and I was sipping some nice Benromachs then. I was thinking I was sipping a 46% of cask strength and an old Creative Whiskey Company, a 1999 Benromach, a very rare appearance from a indie Benromach. Anyway, I was enjoying it very much, but then realised I had to kind of prep for the vPub. And of course, as you know from the quiz at the end, I made a mess of the prep. But no matter, we got through it. But I was casually having a wee dram in between the 2 sessions. And then, of course, when I joined you in the regular Thursday night, I was doing my usual thing and had the drams in front of me, and I was dramming away as we talked about how to pick an indie. By the end of the vPub last week, I was as squiffy as I have ever been broadcasting to you guys live, in my memory at least. Maybe I've been like that a couple of times with Roddy sat alongside me here, but then there's 2 of us steering the ship rather than just one. Why did I bring it up? It's not important, but it kind of is important. I really think it is important because I get through it. I don't think I was slurring my words too much. I don't think I was inappropriate or anything. But I do sit down and broadcast, and last week it was 2.5 hours or so. So, you know, as you're sipping over that time, it can start to kick in a little bit. I think it's okay for you to be writing articles on whiskey and be in any condition that you want to be in your own private space. I think it's okay if maybe even if you're podcasting, there's nothing visual there. But I think as we're broadcasting on YouTube, I think it's incumbent upon us to be upright and responsible and in good shape. Having too much can be fun sometimes, but it's not a good look. And it's not something that you would want to be recommending to other people. I got away with it last week, but it made me very mindful. I think we'll leave it at that. Anyway, enough of the excuses. I'm not going to apologize. I don't think there's anything to apologize for. I just want to mention that I'm mindful of it. Enough of that. I'm going to jump in and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Welcome, everyone. Cheers. Cheers to Thursday nights, says David Hong. You star. Bought me a generous dram to kick things off, buddy. It's wonderful to welcome you in. Thank you very much for being generous. Thank you for being here and being positive and supportive, as always, David. And Jim M. Good to see you, Jim. Celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 12 months. No comment or message, anything. But Jim, it's wonderful to have your support, and it's good to have you here. I'm looking for the orange tonight, so if you're trying to get my attention, type Aquavite or at Aquavite. Remember the V instead of the U. Sometimes I go back and I see just people typing Aquavite the way it is actually spelled, of course. But instead of a U, I have a kind of stylized Roman U, a V thing. Anyway, that's the comments that I'll be most of the time be able to pick up and looking out for. Highland Hamish is here, saying greetings from Inverness. Very much enjoying my new life in whiskey retail in Inverness. Who knew being on the other side of the counter could be so much fun? Hamish, I hope that is something that stays for you. I hope that you're able to hang on to that and you stay impassioned and it stays fun. I know that when things become a grind and become a job, it can lose its appeal a little bit. But if it's, probably you've felt this yourself, most of the folk I meet that work in whiskey seem to stay in whiskey, and they seem to be happy and content in whiskey too. They're good folk. Road to Drama is saying, evening Roy, annual might be a bit quick. It might take a couple of years to win the Whiskey Geeks trust. I think there's a lot of truth in that, Alberto. I think you might be quite right. And as the more and more I thought about it, the more I realised that actually leaving it a couple of years even since 2020, well, it's getting closer to 3 years probably, 2.5 years. It's probably a good time, because then you just speak about probably the cream of the crop, the most important ones, or the ones that have struck me more than anything else. And you guys get to do the same in the comments, of course. Alistair Gray's here. Good to see you, buddy. Good evening, Aquavita and the Magnificent Barflies. Good evening to you too, Alistair. And Mirko is here from Germany saying, good evening, Roy. I'm going to be the Whiskey Fair at Nuremberg this weekend and hope to meet a lot of people from the industry. Look out for my pal, Doc, McAllen Fine and Rare. He's a very tall man. He stands out, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of barflies for you to bump into there, and a lot of wonderful whiskey folk too. Fantastic, Marco. I hope you enjoy it. Rick Johnson saying good afternoon from San Francisco, Roy, and fellow barflies. The last vPub before we change the clocks forward here in the US. And that's right. And we're the end of the month, so we've got 1 or 2 weeks, haven't we, Rick, where we're out of sync a little bit. And that hour is a wee bit off-putting and difficult to manage. Thank you for joining me so early in the day from San Francisco, Rick. It's great to have you. Arnie Tiger is saying, doesn't it become more and more difficult to select a few? It does, Arnie. It does. And you feel super guilty. But a lot of these distilleries I'm going to talk about tonight have a very important thing. They have a sense of personable access to them. They have what was the word I'm looking for? Personality, maybe. Yes, they have a face behind the brand. You get to know the people there, and they very often, as I've just been speaking to Hamish about, they become people that you really quite enjoy their company, and you trust them, and you trust their opinion, you trust their guidance, you get to know them and things. So when you're looking at products and you have to leave out a distillery and you leave them out, it's kind of like it's not just the brand, it's just not everything that it's brought you, the value it's brought you, the flavour, it's not just that you're leaving out. You're also kind of mindful that there are people there that deserve to be recognised. However, they're going to keep doing what they do, they're going to toil away, and everybody gets their chance for us all to celebrate, whether it's in an event where you are, a whiskey club environment, whether it's a tasting somewhere, a festival like the Nuremberg thing that's happening this weekend, or on a online event like we're doing tonight. Everybody is going to get their chance to be elevated as long as they're bringing good quality stuff. But it is very, very hard to narrow it down. Scott Allen is saying good evening. There seems there are many rising stars to choose from these days. Absolutely, Scott. I've managed to whittle it down tonight, but even then I'm going to focus on 4, but there's actually 5, and then that is bookmarked by one each side. But the bookmarks will get through quickly, and the 5 is only going to be talked about if we're running to schedule. I don't know if we actually ever run to schedule in the vPub. Bruno is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you, buddy. Bruno over in Portugal joining us. Fantastic to welcome you in as always. And George Ellis saying, hello, Roy. Hello, Roy. I hope the prices are not rising as fast as the stars. Unfortunately, George. Well, it depends. It does depend, but a lot of prices are outstripping the stars when it comes to rising. It's unfortunate. Whiskey Games is saying, will you do another vPub about grain distilleries to look out for, just for balance? If you talk about grain in Scotch whiskey context, what have we got? 8 grain distilleries in Scotland. 9 if you include other distilleries that are capable of producing grain and do, like Inchdearney, Bruichladdich. If you're talking about grain, in the context of unmalted from Ireland, corn from the States, rye from Canada, we will, but I don't think we'll dedicate, I don't have any vision, there's nothing in the schedule right now to dedicate a vPub to grain, other than, I have to be honest with you, can I just admit it? Maybe it's the same for you, Matt, maybe you're a wee bit more open-minded than I am. I do explore and I do kind of cast my net left and right away from my kind of malt lane, but sometimes I just need to settle myself to say, I enjoy these experiences outside of malt, but what they're actually doing is just reassuring me how much I love malted barley. I love malt whiskey. Doesn't need to be Scotch, but of course that's where my comfort zone is. It's where I tend to spend most of my time. Good to have you in, Matt. And Rob Smith is saying good evening all. Settling in for the vPub with an independent bottling of a Thrusk. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. Rob, that's a good one. It's a good obscure one to be settling with. MJ Rodney's here. Evening, Roy. Barflies, good to see MJ. He's saying an interesting topic, a landscape that would be ever-changing even if you picked only one country or region. Is Lagg on the list, Slantia? Well, rather than just blurt out the list so that my viewing figures kind of do this, I'm going to try and tease you into staying, keeping me company for the night. I hope that's okay. So if you would like to see Lagg on the list, talk about it, explain your reasons why, and even if it doesn't appear tonight, it might. The community has a chance to catch that there's people out there that are enjoying Lagg, despite its youth. Whiskey Wings, Mike is saying, and it was great Aquavitae. Got to let your hair down now and again. Maybe that's him talking about last week. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Gary Carew is saying, Boona 12 cask on the go. Couldn't get squiffy. Could get squiffy myself tonight. Aye. Especially if it's the 2022 one, Gary. It's very, very Moorish, very delicious, very rich and easy. Ben, Whiskey with Molly's in. Good to see you, Ben. I suspected as much when you removed your T-shirt last week. The less we say about that, Ben, the better. It's just jumped right to the bottom. I don't know how much I've missed there, but I have missed a couple. Bruno Martin celebrating being a member of Barflies for 45 months, saying, evening, Roy, busy week. Happy to be here tonight, Bruno. I'm very, very happy to welcome you. And Daniel Williams is saying, remember to like, and Roy will say, slant you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very, very much. On that topic, that's 2 vPubs this year now where I've paused for a second and specifically talked about the likes and things like that. The likes have shot up, and it's really quite marked. Last week's vPub has a very, very high ratio. I think it's getting on for about 6,000 views, but it's getting on for about 600 likes as well. So a 10% like ratio, a 10% interaction ratio anywhere in the online space is massive. And I know that because we used to chase these things when I was in business to business online marketing back in the day. We could never consider that we could get anything like that kind of ratio. It's pretty huge because you're asking 10% of your audience to stop and take a moment and take an action to click the like button. So I really do appreciate it, and it goes a long way to reassuring other people that come in wondering about this guy banging his gums before he even welcoming in everybody, before he even gets onto the topic. It reassures them that it's a legitimate platform and to try and be a wee bit patient with it. Hey, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for your drama, and thank you for your reminder for all of us to hit the like button. Gino Kamoa is in from Canada. Good to see you, buddy. Saying Aquavitae, last week's vPub was perfect. It's jumped. Gino, I'm going to catch you. It was perfect like all others. Cheers. Listen, I'm preaching to the converted with you, Gino. You're a superstar. I love you, man. If you're here and enjoying it, that means a hell of a lot. What I need to do is work on ways to make sure that the people that are newer into the scene as well are feeling comfortable, feeling seen and feeling welcome, and feeling like the content can speak to them too. Black Fen, you star, good to see you. Aquavitae on the subject of grain, did you get round to trying Bain's Cape Mountain from South Africa? And if so, what did you think? I didn't buy Bain's Cape Mountain from South Africa, but I've tried it a few times now. And if it was on the shelf, let me go as far to say, Conrad, I would be very happy to have it. There is no reason I haven't bought it. It's not an aversion to the grain, it's the James Sedgwick distillery, isn't it, in South Africa? It's just that I've always bought something else over it, but I know it to be very good, and I know it to be celebrated. It's even had a mention, I believe it's had a mention in the Oswas, if I remember well. Peter is saying, good to see Frank. He's saying, so nice, I've stopped calling out, hitting a like. They're on the rise, Aquavitae. Should have stopped ages ago. No, please keep doing it, Frank. It means a lot. Thank you, buddy, because I won't be able to do it every week. I'll forget. And Falsgraph is saying, then just say 5 words about this at one point in the vPub regularly. Hit the like, I mean. Hit the like button. It's 4 words, isn't it? Yeah, but 5 words. Falsgraph is probably enough. And Thomas F is celebrating being a member for 8 months. And he's saying evening and thank you for all the great content. Thomas F, thank you for all the great vPubs that you've turned up to join us live for. Cheers to you, buddy. Thanks to everyone. And Black Fen is saying, you're correct that Bain's is made by the same distillery as 3 Ships. Superb. 3 ships, single malt. I've got that here as a 12-year-old. I've got that. Okay, let's get things underway. Wonderful to get the feedback from everyone. Wonderful to get the participation, people sending messages and comments and things to say, oh, you should talk about this. And it's always fuel for inspiration. And even although I've already committed and solidified my selection for tonight, because I've had to go out and maybe make sure I've got whiskey on the shelf, and where I'm missing, where there are some gaps or something, or where I've not got a recent bottling, making sure that I've got that in order to bring this content to you tonight and speak from a position of hands-on experience with the whiskey, okay? And if not, then it's not really valid for me to talk about it. But what is it, based on memory or emotion or something? It has to be something that is contemporary today as I speak to you in March of 2024. So that's probably means buying some recent bottlings, some bang up-to-date bottlings, and comparing it to the ones in the more recent past. What happens, though, is through your feedback, I end up getting inspired in other directions too. So while I think that the discussion about this being a fairly irregular thing and maybe waiting a year, 2 years or more in between these episodes, the way that you draw me in different directions to talk about how much you're enjoying certain producers inspires me about other topics too. So it's been fantastic to get the feedback. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I think it's a bit dull to talk about it tonight, so I need to find a way to make it less dull to talk about, was how we often find echo chamber dynamics or suggest that there are echo chamber dynamics, whether there are or not. Try to be mindful of it, or whether we just maybe there's no easy way to solve an echo chamber in our context, in our environment, because the people that watch the vPub because they enjoy it. I talk about the things that I love and I enjoy, and there might be a kind of feedback loop happening there. So when I try to take this into a space where I want to destroy or take away the echo chamber thing, things like the Only Scotch Whisky Awards, things like the top 40 that was given to Dramface for this very reason, and topics like the ones I'm going to talk about tonight, this kind of thing where you want to kind of reach out and get more discussion than just the people that are in here. All you can do is the best that you can do. Caveat it and say, there may be echo chamber things going on here. However, I want to say this very, very strongly, quietly but strongly, let's say. If you suggest that things are only so because of an echo chamber dynamic, not only are you being rude to the product, not only are you being disrespectful to the producer, you're also being rude and disrespectful to the community to suggest that they don't have the ability to have independent thought. Now, of course, if I get excited about something, maybe the community want to feel that same experience and excitement, and they maybe go out and drink the same thing that I'm drinking, experience that excitement, and that's a kind of echo a loop thing. Okay, what we've actually done there on the positive side, though, is establish a consensus. So we need to stop kind of focusing on when things are repeated in whiskey. It's my belief, and I choose to believe, that it's consensus rather than just people being lazy and just repeating what they've heard. I don't think there are lots of spaces in the world where that is a dynamic, but in whiskey, it doesn't need to be like that. We've got so much choice, so much individual opinion, all of it's welcome. And here's the crucial thing. In whiskey, if you hold up a glass of something and say, I love this, and the buddy that you're drinking with holds up a glass and says, I don't love what you're loving, but I love what I'm loving, you still clink a glass and you go on like a house on fire. Whiskey is amazing at encouraging us to have independent critical thought and to celebrate the things that we love and celebrate the things that we don't love through the vicarious enjoyment of our pals enjoying whiskey too. That's a very important dynamic in whiskey, and I think it breeds into everything that we try and do in a positive community. Yes, be mindful of echo chamber dynamics, of course, but I don't think that that's often what's happening. You know what I'm about to talk about now. This is a producer that will not be talked about tonight, more than just me kind of bookending the discussion. They're not one of the ones that's going to be put forward tonight as one of the rising stars, even though that they are, very much so. But this is a producer that has already risen. When I did this vPub in 2021, this topic, Rising Stars, this producer had only been releasing whiskey for 1 year. They had already taken our attention in that very short space of time. In the 2 or 3 years that's followed since that broadcast, and in the 2 or 3, 4 years that they've been releasing whiskey, they have completely outstripped all expectations, to the point that in the Dramface Top 40, they were, when it was a vPub topic, they were fourth out of the top 10. They were sitting in position 4. When it moved over to Dramface, potentially a much wider audience, and in fact, yes, much more respondents. Remember, the original 700 respondents were cancelled. You had to re-register again. It was a completely new thing for Dramface, and it was at 1,050. They'd moved up to position 2. You tell me if it's an echo chamber thing, or if you can tell me whether you think it's because Ardnamurchan are just making the right decisions and making the best of everything that they have. There is nothing missing from Ardnamurchan that we could ask for. If you pushed, age statement. But even then, you've got a QR code on the back that everything is exposed. So to ask for an age statement you'd just be a dullard, wouldn't you? You'd just be, that's not where we are today in 2024. They give us full transparency. They give us natural whiskey. They give us delicious whiskey, high quality whiskey. If you talk about character, they give us character in spades. If you talk about ethics and a positive philosophy and sustainability and all of the positive things that we like to talk about, the people behind the brand, the personality, everything is there. Their cask strength is 65 pounds. Their core range is 50 pounds and less. The ones that come along in between, like the sherry cask and things, they're giving us variety without drowning the market with loads and loads and loads of constant releases. Everything that they do they just seem to get the balance right. For me to broadcast throughout the vPub on a Rising Stars topic and not mention Ardnamurchan when I didn't mention them back in 2021 would be odd. Again, as I've done in the past, Ardnamurchan will be used as a yardstick by which to measure others tonight. Their pricing, their philosophy, their integrity, their commitment to quality, just their fairness. And that's kind of the lens that I want to look at these other producers through. There's nothing pretentious about Ardnamurchan. There's nothing negative. If you wanted to find anything negative about Ardnamurchan, I put it to you, I suggest strongly that it's perhaps a personal thing. The whiskey doesn't strike you, it hasn't caught you yet. Because everything else is whiskey botherers that we ask for. This is a producer that's bringing it. And I'm telling you that half of the people that bother to cast a vote in the Dramface Top 40 have cast a vote for Ardnamurchan. Quite stunning. Anyway, so this is just, I've got any number of bottles I could have picked as the example here to put and bookend our selection tonight. And as I bring up these Rising Star distilleries, I'll just put an example bottle up here so it can sit in the background. Ardnamurchan is not what's in my glass tonight. But we'll get to it. We will get to it. Falsgraf is saying, I would rather ask if Ardnamurchan has not already got the attention of the also wider community. They have emerged and quickly risen to the top. For me, they are hardly rising anymore. That's right. They're the only people that they're behind, according to the most recent top 40, is Springbank right now. Now, that's very, very tight. There's literally a handful of votes, it seems, at any point in time that separate about the top 7 distilleries in the top 40. It's incredible. So that's going to change and switch around and flash and flicker as time goes on. So I encourage you to keep your votes up to date, keep your preferences up to date, and tell your pals, tell the people that you enjoy whiskey with, to go in and put their top 10 favourites in and try and keep it up to date too. Jimmy Lagg is here. He's bought me a wee dram too. Jimmy, so good to have you. He's saying, Echo Chamber Buster here. Don't care for Ardna, and I disagree with everything you've said. That's exactly why you're here, Jimmy Lagg. I know you're being a wee bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think that even if you don't enjoy Ardnamurchan, and I know you're just being tongue-in-cheek, but if somebody is in that don't enjoy it, I would be hard pushed to believe that they're never going to pick up a glass of Ardnamurchan in the future. And like so many things in life, but yes, definitely when it comes to whiskey and products and producers in whiskey, sometimes, especially being a wee bit open-minded, Jimmy Lagg, right? You have to sit back and say, aye, okay, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I know Jimmy does like it. Anyway, Joe Shepherd is saying, talking about Rising Stars, I'm struggling to connect with Torrevieck. Anyone else having a similar experience? Torrevieck is very, very heavily peated and very spirit forward. I think Torrevieck is a fantastic spirit, and they're being quite straightforward right now. They're not kind of making us dizzy with lots of choice or whatever. They've basically just got a core product out there now, cast strength core product. And they're just going to update that every year or two. And I think that's a good strategy, and it separates them from the crowd. I also think that Torrevieck Spirit is one that's going to sing as the years go by. They're not fettling and footering around with it too much. But Joe, stick with it, much like I just said we're talking to Jimmy about Ardnamurchan. Stick with it. You don't need to go out and spend your 50, 60 pounds, euros, dollars, whatever it is on a bottle of it, but try and do a wee sample swap or pick up a sip at a bar or a tasting, whatever it is, and keep your mind open. You might be quite surprised in the future. A generous dram just come in from Wook. Now, Wook is very generous. Has been the last few weeks has been buying me generous drams. Thank you, Wook. Thank you so much. But not saying a lot. You're a Patreon supporter now as well, Wook, and I've sent you a wee message, a direct message on Patreon to reach out to you and things. So hopefully you'll pick up that message and be able to respond, buddy. I can see that you're in Europe. Maybe English isn't your first language, or of course we assume that that's the case. But it'd be nice to touch base with you. In the meantime, I'll raise a glass and say thank you once more for your super generous support. Thank you, Wook. Menel from Belgium is here. Superstar is saying, I think Torrevieck will blow a lot of people's minds once when it's 10 years or so, which is rapidly coming around for so many of these new distilleries. All right, I'm going to park what's in the glass here. I'm going to put it off to the side, and I'm going to pour something fresh. So we've covered why there's no Ardnamurchan tonight. We can just put, it's on the shelf. We've talked about it. It deserves to be talked about tonight. It deserves to be considered a rising star. But in the 2.5 years or so since I first did this topic, it's already risen, and it's difficult to see where it can go. It's up there with the big boys now. Springbank's in top place. Bruichladdich, Bunnahabhain's up there. I'm talking about this as community favourites, not a personal thing. Lochranza, Isle of Arran, Lochranza's up there. Glengyle, Kilkerran, Glen Scotia. That's the pedigree that Ardnamurchan is up there playing with right now. And it's up to you guys to decide whether that sustains or not. But they're there, and I think they deserve to be there. Let's now look at the 4 distilleries, the 4 producers that I put forward to you back in 2021. Now, if anybody's been reading the description underneath the video before we went live tonight, I already shared these with you. You didn't need to go back and watch that original 2021 broadcast. But one of the first ones that I brought up in 2021 was Loch Lomond. A rising star. You could absolutely consider a rising star in Loch Lomond today. It sustains. They are still rising. They're still increasing. They're still going up. But back in 2021, it's going to be hard for us to remember how we perceived them. They were just coming out of our peripheral vision and into our focus back in 2021. A lot of tonight is going to be me speaking personally, my opinion, but that was definitely true. And it was on the back of the 2020 release, their open release in 2020, the Chardonnay Wine Yeast 12-year-old. You might remember there were only 3,000 bottles, but it was literally, it remains one of my bottles of the decade. It is just a fabulous bottle of whiskey. Unique, like nothing else that I'd had before. That's what started to bring Loch Lomond onto my radar. But of course, you're always a step ahead of me. It was already on your radar. Danny Keenan is here. Good to see you, Danny. He's bought me a dram to say cheers, Roy. I'm working up in the cold Scottish mountains tonight. We'll catch on the replay. Danny, I know, I'm hoping that you and I have a chance to get together while you're up here working in Scotland, buddy. It's going to be nice to raise a glass for you again and see how you're doing with things. I hope it's not too cold up in those mountains. David Evans is celebrating being a barfly for 47 months and putting a shout out for Loch Lee down in the Lowlands. Will rise above all, he's predicting. And Eric Cunliffe is celebrating being a member for 33 months and saying, cheers all, can't wait to see some of you soon. Eric is coming over here. I think he's coming over, obviously, to do the Spring Bank School Week, which is amazing. Graham Young has bought me a dram. Graham Ustari saying, I'm thinking Loch Lee will be rising star, if not already there. Cheers. Well, sit tight and wait and see if Loch Lee was able to make the cut tonight, Graham. And Wook is in buying loads and loads and loads of Aquavitae memberships to get everybody signing up to support me as a barflies. If you do take up one of Wook's gifted Aquavitae memberships and decide to join and stay and participate, you guarantee that the vPubs will never be monetized through YouTube or Google in the future through advertising revenue. You keep everything ad-free. That's what the YouTube membership is. It's $1.99 of whatever currency you spend, dollars, euros, pounds. And it keeps everything ad-free. Thank you all so much for your support, Wook, and barflies generally. Let's get something in the glass. I also suggested after Loch Lomond that Glenturret was a rising star. This is not tonight. This is me going back to 2021, because you might remember also in 2020, Glenturret had a complete revamp and relaunch. We were all super nervous they were going to premiumize. They did premiumize. But what they also did is they made significant strides towards much more natural, honest product at the same time. Yes, the prices went up, but the quality went up. And I'll never forget my first experience with that 2020 maiden release of their 12-year-old. I was a convert immediately. Some of the expressions now, the 12-year-old has gone up in price. The 15-year-old is often really quite out of reach, well north of £100 now for the 15-year-old. But they've often got the triple wood and the peat smoke versions. They've got other things that's a wee bit more affordable as well. And they have taken a brand and rejuvenated it. Glenturret was nothing before. It was something that you bought at the distillery because you went as a part of the famous grouse experience and you picked up a bottle of the sherry cask at 43% or something, but it wasn't really in a lot of people's radars, and it wasn't in the lexicon of the whiskey botherer. 2020 came along in 2021, suddenly it appeared. Then along came Glencadam. You might remember in 2020, I put out the Glencadam 10 hero video. I'm not suggesting I'm responsible for the popularity of Glencadam, but they were a rising star then. That's what brought it onto my radar, and they'd been around. The 10-year-old had been around for a little while, but the quality of it was so good, and the value proposition of it was so good, with that 100% natural presentation in a 10-year age statement. At the time, it was £34, and you could often get it for 30 or less, going back to 2020, yes. But it made it just such a compelling value proposition. And I think a lot of people like me, used that as a springboard to explore the rest of the Glencadam range. Ralphie had made the 15-year-old his whisky of the year previous to that, so it was already on our radar to a very, very significant extent. But the more and more that we started to feel comfortable with this pale liquid from the Eastern Highlands, the more we started to realise we could unlock treasures. And it was fantastic, fantastic stuff. And how much fun have we had with Glencadam in the intervening years? Finally, Benromach. My goodness, Benromach, right? To look at this list now, especially with Benromach in it, you think, my goodness, Roy, were you really putting out content to suggest that Loch Lomond, Glenturret, Glencadam and Benromach are good whiskies and you made a vPub out of that? We have to contextualise it. It was 2021. We need to remember that those distilleries, and they were, it's difficult to realise now, but they were just on our periphery. They weren't in our central focus. Benromach went through a rebranding. They went from their kind of clear bottles. They had their fans, they had their followers, they had the people that believed in it, but they went through a rebranding. And with that rebranding, they missed an opportunity to step up to do what the Discovery series from Gordon and MacPhail and the distillery labels had done. And not Discovery, that's still, but the distillery labels and the Connoisseur's Choice had gone 46% and above, much more natural. Benromach, we thought, would do that with a rebrand, but they didn't. So the 10-year-old, the 15-year-old, 21-year-old stayed at 43%. Wee bit of a shame, but we've kicked that dog to death. We really have. What it did do with the rebrand is they brought out these contrast series products, and they doubled down, releasing batch releases of their cask strength with vintage statements on it and fair pricing. And oh, how we fell in love with that stuff. The cask strength brought the full-on Benromach, and the contrast series brought all of these kind of fun and experimental things. Triple distillation, organic barley, peat smoke versions, and peat smoke with sherry cask. And eventually along came Cara Gold, a different barley varietal. It wasn't exclusively Cara Gold in that bottle, but there was a huge proportion of it. So these really quite interesting things to kind of double down on that concept of, I think I used to back then refer to Benromach as something as of a Speyside skunk works. And they've continued that. They've even got really geeky in recent years with the air dried and kiln dried releases of the oak series. That was part of under the contrast umbrella too. So you look at that now and say, Roy, you weren't really. These were distilleries back then on the up and up. Whereas now in 2024, we're looking at distilleries that are here. They've arrived and they're doing fantastic things. This is a very worthy thing to talk about because it means that you and I as whiskey botherers have a chance to say, well, where next? That's a bit expensive now that I've been buying. Where can I go now? Look to your peers in the whiskey community and see what they're doing. Back in 2021, these were the distilleries, amongst many others, that were coming on to the radar. A dram's come in from Mike B to say, cheers, Roy. I've been so impressed by Dornoch Spirit. Whatever Phil and Simon Thompson are doing is clearly working. I wish it was easier to access. Well, they're making huge steps to try and conquer that thing, aren't they? It's such a tiny distillery with a tiny output that it's just disappearing. It's in huge demand. You know, Dornoch's up there with Daft Mill and maybe even beyond, actually, and in terms of its desirability. But things will change. They're going to take their philosophy, they're going to upscale things, and they're moving in that direction. Listen, Mike, I hope I'm able to reach out to the Phils and the Simons, the Jacks and the teams up there at Dornoch Distillery and maybe encourage them to step forward and join us on a vPub sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for your dram, buddy. Cheers to you. So I'm going to tell you the first distillery, and remember our yardstick, Ardnamurchan. Going to bring another yardstick in here because I think it's maybe even a more potent yardstick than Ardnamurchan. I'm going to bring in a distillery that's a rising star right now, and I'm going to see if you guys can guess what I'm going to bring in and talk about. I bet you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be something of a Sassenach, and Sassenach is a Gaelic word for a lowlander or an Englishman. It's from the Gaelic for Saxon. So Sassenach is a colloquial term for somebody from down south. It's nothing to do with the Loch Lomond bottling, to do with, I can't remember, Sam, can't remember his surname, from the Outlander show. They have a bottle called the Sassenach. I'm speaking about a producer that's behaving as something of a Sassenach. What do you think it is? Something from south of the border, something that is a malt distillery, but it is not Scotch. Menno. Already guessed it. Kyle Taylor already guessed it. Al already guessed it. Ian Bruce already guessed it. Of course, you all know what I'm talking about. I don't know which one to pour here tonight. I actually thought I had an unsealed bottle over there that I could maybe uncork tonight, but actually I love this stuff so much that I'm tearing into it. This is all that's left. I've been really careful with this. This is their first batch that's released way back in 2022 now. January 2022, my goodness. I've also got, I've got quite a few Wireworks. We've got the Kuduro over there. We've got two versions of the small batch. We've got Alter Ego. I've actually brought, this is the Alter Ego with the kind of teal aqua green label. And I've also got one of their small batch that I've brought over. This is the 03 2022 small batch. 46.2%. This is a lightly peated. And something in common with most of what I have, maybe the Kuduro is actually different. They're almost always bourbon, ex-bourbon, or first fill bourbon, and STR. I think that comes across on the palate. I think it brings, STR brings that kind of, it's not for everyone. It's something that I enjoy. I really do quite enjoy a wee bit of STR. Quite quiet pop. Come on, let's give it a... There we go. Let's put a wee bit of this small batch. This is their core release. This is the one that's always available. 46.2%, I think I mentioned that. All natural whiskey. No age on it, but they do tell us batch number. And they do write natural colour and non-chill filtered on there too. White Peak, as a distillery, have never put anything in a glass that I have not sat up and thought, that's ridiculously good for its age. And then you feel bad because you've said for its age. What you actually mean is that is ridiculously good, full stop. The amount of times that I've put a White Peak down in front of someone, yes, it's perceptible that it's youthful whiskey. Maybe some people are able to quite quickly ascertain that they're sitting in front of something that is in single-digit age statements. But they are very unlikely to turn around and say that you're sipping a 3 or 4 or 5 year old product. I paused there before I took a sip because I realised as I put my nose in the glass, I've got that really kind of estery, fermentation forward, kind of ripe fruits, bread mix and almost cake mix type notes, that kind of thing, almost like a Madeira cake or something. Ripe banana. The spices are soft. They're like soft ginger and soft nutmeg and soft cinnamon, but they're all there. Warmth, inviting, quite modern in profile, quite a modern style of whiskey, White Peak. Ironically modern because it harks back to what we believe whiskey might have been like back once upon a time. I don't know, I wasn't there, were you? Super texture, super mouthfeel, long finish. The only issue I have with White Peak generally is how I can access a bit more of the DNA of the spirit. Most of the White Peaks I've had have you can sit down with a bit of peace and quietness in a clean air room and try and tease out some notes that are very, very likely to come from the spirit. But a lot of it does seem to be quite active bourbon, STR casks, that kind of thing. I think as time goes on and the casks transform into being much more refill, obviously they're using the casks and refilling them as the casks become much more refill and as the spirit is given much more time to mature. I think that could change a wee bit, but it matters not, because what we've got now is a cracking balance. None of these cask flavors or cask notes I'm talking about is over the top. They're just worthy of note. And everything, I have not picked up, purchased, sipped, experimented with anything from White Peak at any point, even some of the really, really young spirit from sample bottles and new making things, that is anything other than remarkable. It's telling that if I suggested to you and teased to you tonight, there is an English distillery coming up, type it in the comments. Yeah, I know some people are going to suggest that there's echo chamber and think these kind of things. Fine, doesn't matter. For us, it doesn't matter, because this is fabulous whiskey and you picked it out. 4 or 5 of you more were able to pick it out. Surely it's going to be Wireworks. It's going to be White Peak. Wireworks is the brand. White Peak is the distillery. So let's pick one of these bottles to go over and take its place. As the Sassenach in our lineup. Why is that important? Because I'll never miss an opportunity to say this. I'm proud of this quote. There is nothing that guarantees good Scotch malt whisky more than good English malt whisky. Most of the stuff I've tasted from south of the border is fabulous. Yes, it's flavour forward. They are not going after efficiency. They're not going after yield. They're not going after mass market. They're going after people who are into tasting over drinking. So it should make sense that the vast majority of it should be very good tasting whiskey. And that's certainly true. In my experience, you could go to Filey Bay, you could go to the lakes, you could go down to far south of Bimber and Cotswolds. All of these distilleries and many, many, many more that we've barely scratched the surface of. I'm speaking about myself personally. They're just around the corner for us to discover. What's tomorrow's new discovery from England? It's incredible. Between 40 and 50 English malt distilleries. 15 years ago, there was one. Incredible times. I can't talk about Rising Stars tonight without putting one of those forward. I hope you'll forgive me. Kresimir is in OU Star. That's the Sniper King himself. Superb Kresimir over in, I think it's Yelchich. I think we discussed at length over many drams about how to pronounce your surname, buddy. It's just grateful to see you. And I think I'm getting the Kresimir thing right. 4 months ago, I did a vertical tasting of 8 newly opened distilleries. And the ones that stood out were Ardnamurchan, Annandale, and Torrevake. Loch Lea for me was at the bottom of the lineup. Well, it very much depends on which Loch Lea you've got in the lineup, doesn't it? It's good that you are enjoying the Torrevake and the Annandale, and the Ardnamurchan is, of course, we would expect it to do well. But Loch Lea right now is, even with their crop, their seasonal releases, where they do 4 releases each year, with very, very different takes, almost like a kind of rainbow, different colours, remarkably different colours. That's what they're doing now, almost like Kilkerran did back in the work in progress days. At some point in the future, Loch Lea are going to come out and really develop that Our Barley core release and say, this is our core. This is our core product. This is the core. This is we take all of these other components that's making up these seasonal releases and we put it together to craft this thing. And I think that that's what Loch Lea should be judged upon. So I hope it was the Our Barley in the lineup, or maybe the Cask Strength, which is pretty good, from Loch Lea, because I think all the other ones are quite extremes on the bandwidth, right? Heavily, well, not heavily peated, but it comes peated cask, or a heavily sherried cask, that kind of thing. It's going to depend on which one. Kresimir, it's great to see you, and I'm glad you were able to do a wee direct flight of some new whiskies, new distilleries. And Alison, on the subject of Sassenach, Roy, have you come across Streetlight Malt Whiskey? Oh no, I have not. A Canterbury distillery recently won an award for their inaugural single malt. So there you go, Al. It's impossible for me to keep up with Scotch whiskey production, right? It's almost doubly impossible for me to keep up with everything that's happening in the rest of the British Isles and in Ireland. And Streetlight, Canterbury Distillery. I wonder which award they won. But there's another one. Like I say, we're not even scratching the surface. And Luke John, that looks like a new name, Luke. Good to welcome you in. He's saying Yarm Distillery on Teesside is now producing whiskey. A little expensive for what it is, but first batch sold out very quickly. As it tends to happen with first batches, the big thing with new distilleries, Luke, is will we go back to buy a second? Will we open that and go back and buy a third? It's another one that I haven't touched at all, Yarm Distillery in Teesside. Brian Cabayas is saying, I'll catch the replay after work. Very interesting topic about rising stars and cheers. Brian, we're so used to having you in, buddy. I hope you do pick it up on the replay, and good luck with the quiz at the end when you do. And Cresimir saying it was the first release. Okay. It was a Loch Lomond first release. So theoretically, their youngest ever whiskey too. So probably quite tough. And unless you're doing all the first releases up against each other, you know. Anyway, stick with it. Trust Loch Lomond and some of their future releases, Cresimir. I hope you enjoy them too. So there we are. We have our Sassenach contender in the lineup. Let's roll into the first of our Scotch whiskey producers. And it's what I've been sipping in the glass. There's the Wireworks here. I'll put this off to the side and I'll bring back the one I opened with you tonight. On the back of the Wireworks, this is quite a comparison here. So where this is kind of ripe fruit and that kind of fermentation forward, almost like a beer forward. If you've ever been in a small room that's full of washbacks, you know, that smell when you walk in there, when everything's super active, that's very reminiscent. That's what Wireworks is like on the nose. Whereas this is fresh fruit, apple, sharp tart apple, fresh citrus. Everything is kind of, it's just like you've walked out of that fermentation room and you're in the outdoors now. You've got kind of a fresh breeze, but there's lots and lots of fruit going on. Obviously, you want to then talk about orchard and things like that. But this is whiskey that I tried and thought, that's okay. Went back, tried, that's okay. The last year or two, they're starting to really hit their stride. And I'm enjoying this, but there's a bottle going to come up that I am absolutely loving. It's one of two local distilleries to me, very close to me, a part of a renaissance of whiskey distillation and whiskey making back in my city. And I'm very excited by it. Very excited by both distilleries. I think both distilleries made the mistake of releasing too young, too early, too much. And we kind of touched it and went, okay, we're going to leave that for a few years. It's maybe they have to do that. Maybe that's the business model. Maybe they need to do that in such a way. But as whiskey lovers, we're going to go in and pay our £50 or £60, sometimes a hell of a lot more than that for the first releases. It's a hard lesson to learn. We've got something on the shelf that's going to take us a long time to get through, and we're not in a hurry to go back. And that's the problem with a lot of new distilleries. However, both of my local distilleries are suddenly really, really hitting their stride. The one I want to celebrate tonight is the one that's been doing it just a wee bit longer. Alistair Gray, Martin Fielder, Tim Allett, Alan Smith. Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Got it absolutely right. The one I've got in the glass right now is Glasgow Distillery. I went into Good Spirits Company this week and I picked up a bottle, and then they were out of stock of something else I needed, so I went into another whiskey shop. I went into the whiskey shop in Glasgow city centre, and this was sitting here, and I thought, since I've got the other one, I'll just get this too. I bought this week. It was 50 quid. It's Glasgow's 1770, the original. This is a non-age statement product, but it's 46% ABV. It tells us on the label that it's natural colour and non-chill filtered. And I have to say, it's one of the most attractive, but it's attractive aesthetically, visually. But I think when you hold it and it's in your hand and you kind of get to a bit more tactile with it, you realize how nice a bottle this actually is, especially now that it's 70 cl. It launched at 50 cl, of course. And what you also notice that you can't just pull the cork, although I managed to pull the cork off there, but this is actually a screw top. Yeah, it just wasn't screwed on. So a bit like the Highland Park, the newer Highland Park embossed bottles, where you push the cork in and you turn it. This, yeah, screw, and then it pops off. That could have been messy, actually. I should learn to not do these things live. I'll give myself a fright, and maybe some of you too. But anyway, Glasgow out here, and just, they're not in the centre, they're just outside of Glasgow, but they are still part of Glasgow. And the reason that they're called 1770 is it's in reference to the original Glasgow distillery, which would have been founded back in 1770. This is the original. This is part of their core range. I'm going to put it up here to hold our space. And we can talk about the once ignored local. What's been happening recently? The Glasgow Whisky Festival last year, coincidentally, the SWG3 Festival at the start of this year, and lots of chatter about our community in general, and certainly in Dramface. You might remember even when Mark Watt was on with me at the end of last year, one of the blind samples he sent me, I declared it to be Campbelltown, of course, but that was actually a very young 6-year-old Glasgow distillery product, and I thought it was fantastic, and Mark Watt thought it was fantastic too. After the live stream finished that night, we went on to talk about Glasgow distillery in some depth. Made me much more curious, made me realise to open up a wee bit. And what's remarkable, let's use Ardnamurchan as the yardstick here. Be fair and be reasonable on pricing. Well, they're £49 for the 50cl. When they changed to 70cl, they kept it at £49 recommended retail. It's gone up a wee bit, as everything has now. It's £50, £52, that kind of thing for their core range. But their cask strength series of the same, whether it's the peated PX or the original cask strength, it's £64, £65 for cask strength. These are fair prices in 2024. But the one I'm going to show you today is not that. The peated PX is here. It's off to the side. You might remember that I used it in the cask strength vPub last year. But I've got a different one. This is cask strength, but this is one of their small batch series. There's only 800, that's an 813 bottles. This is batch 1 of this particular release. This is their Manthania small batch sherry release. 813 bottles, super limited. Just once it's gone, it's gone. How much do you think? £59. I'm in. Eeny, meeny, which one am I going to take? Am I going to take Calvados? Am I going to try the tequila? Am I going to try and seek out one of the ones that's come before it, the Tokai or whatever it may be? They're bringing out these just in very, very small batches. And when they run out, they're gone. Just to showcase their spirit and how their spirit is playing in different environments and different casks. I have to tell you that this is an absolutely excellent, excellent bottle of whiskey. The fact that it's made in my city, and I was able to pick this up at £59. I bought it in Good Spirits Company this week, but I have to admit, I apologise, it's the last bottle. I took the last bottle off the shelf, but this is still out there, this Manthania 2024 release. It's still out there, £59. This is exciting stuff. Nuts. And I mean nuts as in the context of crazy, but also mean nuts as in the context of it smells like nuts. Dry nuts. This is like, so peanuts and things are oily, right? But it's not peanuts. This is like a walnut. Like the nuts with the dry, flaky skin, walnut, that kind of thing. There's also a really nice kind of, it's not floral, but it's something that's kind of perfumed. There's ripe fruit, melon, rich ripe melon. There's soft, the tobacco thing. So the perfume, it's almost like a wee bit like, I don't know I can't, what's the word? What's the sticks? The incense. That's what I'm thinking about. It's that kind of that kind of nose, that kind of perfume, that kind of aromatic thing. Tobacco, cigars, not lit, just cigars. But there is something floral. There's a kind of a, don't know, maybe even fruit tea, like a box of fruit tea. Fantastic nose, fantastic nose. I know what's going to happen when I start to sip this thing, because I've already, as you see, it's not an uncorking tonight. I've uncorked this earlier in the week. Cheers, everyone. I suffer from peat blight, as you very well know. On the label here, it tells me that it's unpeated. When I put my nose in this the first time, I could smell something savoury, reminded me of peat smoke. As I was nosing it tonight, I forgot all about that. Took that first sip of it, immediately reminded about the saltiness, the savouriness, and something that plays like peat. Well, because of discussions behind the scenes at Dramface, I think there's a review coming up on Dramface of this, maybe next week or something. I think I've got to go and build it up. It's not been done yet. There was a discussion about whether or not this was actually peated. It says unpeated on the label. Well, two of us at the same time went back to Glasgow Distillery to say, hey, we're loving this Manthania. We think it's fantastic. Can you tell us a wee bit more about it? What's the story with the cask? And it turns out that this Manthania cask that this was used for has already had Glasgow Spirit in there before, and it was peated. Let me tell you that what that has left is not like not bonfire, not outdoor, not iodine, not TCP, not any of those things, but it's left a warm, savoury, aromatic smoke. Ever so light. But it's there, even for someone like me who can struggle to pick up big peat bombs at times. And it comes across as a savoury element to the whiskey. Non-chill filtered, natural colour, everything on the label. The ABV on this is 59% ABV. This is cask strength. Look at this character. Now, I haven't read this. I haven't read this. The first time I'm reading this with you right now, it actually says saline smoke, plum, dried apricot, tropical papaya, leather, tobacco, dark chocolate, espresso. I'll give you all of those. But there's a delicacy to things too. And there's a nuttiness to things too. And on the finish, it's so drying, just so dry. Not all dry finishes are short, right? And that's what makes it moreish. That's what makes you want to go back and have a second pour of a pretty potent spirit. What just fantastic, fantastic whiskey. This is my local distillery now, bringing out cask strength, limited edition, small batch, fabulous liquid for 59 quid. You could argue that it should be part of the Ignored series, but Glasgow Distillery's already had its time in the Ignored series. I've covered it. Things have moved on since then. Glasgow Distillery are now well and truly hitting their stride. They are absolutely a rising star, and they are right now playing fair with us. Their philosophy is fair. They're being natural, integrity forward, flavour forward, and their pricing is fair. The days of 50 CL product, the excitement of the new distillery in town and that kind of thing, that's didn't last very, very long, but they've turned things around in the last 2 years, considerably so. What say you? I hope you are enjoying my once ignored local too. Pedro in Brazil is saying, great to see Glasgow 1770 on the list. I feel Clydeside is also highly ignored. Listen, it was nearly there, especially their limited 2023 release. It was the last Glasgow Whisky Club night. It was there. Everyone was surprised at just how good it was. And it held its own. It went toe-to-toe with some amazing drams in the flight that night. A lot of people putting their hands up and voting for the Clydeside's latest limited edition batch in a kind of dark red tube. In fact, it's within reach here. Let's give it a mention. There's not many bottles within reach, but this happens to be here. This is still sealed. I bought this also for the cask strength vPub last year, and I've just not got around to opening it here. But I've tried this a few times now, this Clydeside. So this dark red Clydeside at 60.6% ABV. I can't remember how much I paid for it, £50, £55, £60, something of that order, 65. The usual price for a cask strength limited edition of it from a new distillery. We tried it again most recently. It's very fresh in my memory, and you're spot on, Pedro. It's another one that probably should be celebrated. It will have its time in the limelight. Thank you for bringing it up here tonight. Alan Smith is saying, it's had peat in a cask I asked on the day. Fantastic, Alan. So you've already picked up that very thing. Erwin Laranaga is saying, just poured a dram of 1770 original. Tasted bubblegum fruit with a bit of a cinnamon spice finish. Absolutely. Bubblegum fruit. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. The cinnamon, the soft spice is exactly what I was talking about. Alistair Gray saying, I love the saltiness of the Manthania. Glen Murray did an awesome Manthania finish. Warehouse 1 release, a belter. Fantastic, Alistair. And Hoyt is saying, more Ardmore than Ardbeg. Well, in terms of the smoke on this, the profile on this, it's an anomaly, right? They do a peated distillate. It's not made the same way. Think about Springbank. You know, you've got triple distilled, unpeated Hazelburn. You've got your slightly peated Springbank that's kind of 2.4 times distilled. And then you've got your double distilled Long Row. Something similar happening at Glasgow. They've got their triple distilled. They've got their original, which is mostly unpeated, I believe. And then they've got their peated series. It's currently available as a core release, but it's got a lot of sherry impact in there from its PX. It's peated PX. So it's kind of similar. The peat smoke, in my experience, is closer to, yes, maybe Ardmore, but even then it's kind of different again. The peat smoke for me right now, that's the first time I've had it expressed like this. All the stuff I've had so far has been alongside a big dose of PX. But they've recently brought out peated expressions that have different casks, like the Tokai recently. And I think it's today, was it today that the Glasgow Distillery triple review, the trifecta, came out today? I think it was the PX core range, PX cask strength, and obviously the peated Tokai. I think Drummond put that review out today. So they are bringing different takes on their peat as well. So I imagine that they'll find ways to bring us different takes on their peated spirit in the future. They won't be putting it all into PX casks, right? Jamie Legg is saying maybe they dried the barley with a walnut wood. It's giving me a wee wink. Tom B is saying currently drinking an SMWS from Glasgow Distillery, peated. It's taken a while for the bottle to open up. Wonder it would be probably quite young as well. SMWS, very likely to be single cask too. If you get any more deets on it, Tom, I wonder if that's a new name as well. Nice to welcome you in, buddy. Danny Eventon is saying, I've never tried a Glasgow, but I think that will change very soon. Danny, I hope you can get your hands on the Manthania. It was quite thinly spread. I know that some retailers, they didn't. I think Good Spirits Company only got a couple of cases. I got the last bottle, but it's well worth your time. It's an absolute cracker. The Clydeside Distillery Tour was 28% ABV, says Jimmy Legg. Clydeside. Hellswood is saying, yet to fully connect with Glasgow 1770, just not found one that's hit the spot yet. I think you're where I was just a couple of years ago, maybe even more recently than that. And Sandra is saying, what a beautiful sounding whiskey. We'll seek it out if it's available in Italy. Great. Well, I hope some of it makes it closer to you. Graham Fraser is in. He's saying, I've promoted the Clydeside Distillery handful since the beginning, and they will always surprise and please friends and blind tastings. I know you're a big fan, Graham, and I think that in terms of a core release, that 2023 limited edition that I just held up to the camera there is the closest to those the type of experience you could get from the handfuls that you would get at the distillery. I think hopefully you're back from work now, Graham. You were heading back from work. Hopefully you're settled in to join us. And Hoyt is saying, thanks, Aquaviti. Good description. And Sachin Kent is in saying, Spirit of Alba have the Manthania. Spirit of Alba. Manthania to me is a wee bit, maybe I would put it up there close to Palo Cortado. I think my favourite is maybe still Madeira. But I think they're all quite similar because they have this kind of really sweet nuttiness that can sometimes play a wee bit like savoury to me. Palo Cortado certainly like that. Madeira can be like that. And that's certainly what this is like for me tonight. I think I'm not always in the mood for sherry. But these type of sherries, Palo Cortado, Manthania, Madeira, fortified wines, let's say, I tend to be more accepting of. And Tom is clarifying it's the SMWS 1563 Christmas conflagration, a 5-year-old, one of 214. Cheers. Thanks, Tom. Fingers crossed that bottle does open up. I don't know what cask it's from. Rick Johnson is saying a dram for Peter Lee's painting efforts. Good for Peter. Tremendous stuff. Thank you very, very much. I'll maybe get a chance to see Peter this week at the Glasgow Whisky Club and maybe get a chance to buy him a wee dram, Rick. Thanks to you, buddy. Cheers. Team Amontillado all the way here talking sherry. I'm a fan, Karsten, of Amontillado too. One of my favourite Amontillados ever was a Deanston Amontillado. It was an absolute belter. It was a wee bit expensive, but it was mature. But just, Amontillado again, it's just that kind of slightly different, slightly dialed down, slightly quieter, more interesting take on fortified wine. Let's keep moving. Let's keep these clear and defined. Let's put my Manthania there, my 1770 there. Let's get something else from a distillery that I consider to be somewhat rejuvenated. Now, there are a lot of people that were guessing about the type of whiskies that I would bring forward tonight, and I was a wee bit surprised and rendered a wee bit anxious that nobody had mentioned this distillery that I wanted to talk about. But I suppose that's quite good because it means that there's an element of surprise and there's at least an element of Roy in this, that I'm not just completely taking all the suggestions from the community and I'm standing up and saying, no, you need to engage with this stuff. This is bloody good stuff and I want you to know about it. It's not going to be the first time it's appeared on the vPub. Sporadically over the last couple of years, since that 2021 Rising Stars broadcast, certainly I've talked about it more and more. 2021 is the year that I finally connected with this whiskey in a positive way, and I've amassed quite a few bottles of it since. The first bottle I bought was a disaster, and there's still some of it up on the shelf now, and there's going to be some of it up on the shelf for a long time to come. It's just not great whiskey, but I go back to it from time to time just to kind of remind myself, why did I feel like that? Have I changed as the bottle opened up? All of these things, but it remains sitting on the naughty shelf. Very grateful that I explored some other areas from this distillery, because it's, with one middle of the road exception, everything else I've bought since then has been fantastic. Can anyone guess the Speyside distillery I'm about to talk about? It's owned by White Mackay, and I'm just about to celebrate loudly a White Mackay distillery with you tonight is a surprise to me. Probably a surprise to you too. But if I'm going to celebrate that distillery, it can only be one. It was originally this 16-year-old Fettercairn that made me fall in love with it. My second bottle of this is the second release, 2021. The one that's sitting on the shelf far too long is the first release. It was very, very dark. I bought it in a litre bottle, so it was originally designed to be a travel retail, but obviously during COVID, it ended up in general retail. This is the second release that came out in 2021. fully natural, natural colour, unchill filtered, 46.4% ABV, age statement on there, decent price as well. I think I paid, going from memory, somewhere in the order of about £65 for this. A 16-year-old whiskey, 16-year-old. Then that encouraged me to go on and explore the Warehouse series from Fettercairn, and I was just, these are amazing. I should have really invested back when there was much more of the first release of the Warehouse series, which I think was Warehouse 2 Batch 1, I think. This is Warehouse 2 Batch 3 that I've got in my hand now, and you can see I've only got a wee drop left in that. I'm really loving this. This is the one that I'm kind of struggling a wee bit more with. Very different cask makeup every time. I've got a wee bar chart across the front to let you know what the casks are. They tell you what the vintage is and things on it. And on the box as well, they go into a wee bit more detail, but I toss away the boxes and try and go from memory. Of course I do. But this is the one that just wasn't quite as, sitting quite as nicely for me. 48.8% ABV. Yes, that one. Anyway, I'm going to put a poll in here, and I'm going to ask you which of these two that's coming up should I open, and I'll open and uncork one tonight. These have been waiting. Start a poll. Which Fettercairn? And you can decide whether I open the Warehouse 14, which is a 2023 release, batch 1, or the 2022 release. Why have I bought the 2022 release? Well, let me tell you why. Of the 16-year-old. Start a poll, get a wee bit of interaction here. I'm ambivalent about which of these bottles I open, so I'll put it over to you guys here. We've got, this is the Warehouse 14 batch 1. 2023 release, 51.2% ABV. The cask makeup on this, I bet you this camera will never focus on that, but we'll try and at least give it the chance to try and see if it can. Don't see it. There we go. Look at that. Ex-bourbon barrels, refill ex-bourbon barrels, and local beer barrels. The local beer barrels only make up 12%. Refill is 7%, and the rest looks like 81%. That must be. Yeah, 81 it must be. That makes sense. Ex-bourbon barrels. Right up my street. Wee bit of beer in there. I'm okay with that. Wee bit of refill. All ex-bourbon. I'm quite excited about this. Let's have a look at the colour on this one. Whoever's in charge at Fettercairn now are getting the message. This is all natural. It's great stuff. So it's quite a nice pale colour. You can even see me through that bottle, which is nice. Gorgeous bottle as well. Really quite nice. The type of bottle that if it was overpriced, you would say it's tacky, but because it's reasonably priced, you quite like it. A wee bit like the Wireworks even. It's a wee bit reminiscent to the Wireworks. And then the other one, obviously, the 16-year-old is a 2022 release. There's a 2023 release out there as well that's available, but 2022 release, amongst certain retailers, you can still pick up the 16-year-old for £70. Decent price, 16-year-old, 46.4% ABV, fully natural presentation as well. Very similar in colour. The Warehouse series, just a wee bit paler. I know you won't see it against, yeah, you can kind of see that this one's a wee bit paler. So which one am I going to be opening? It's either going to be the Warehouse series or the 16-year-old. I've been a huge fan of the 16-year-old. The Warehouse series has helped elevate something about Fettercairn that's made me fall in love with it. And here's the word I'm going to use. And I'm hoping it's here tonight. When we get a taste for something in single malt Scotch whisky, it's usually something that's been matured a long time, and it's usually something from a refill cask or a quieter cask, but it's tropical fruit. Bright, sweet, quiet, soft, delicious, tropical fruit notes. Starfruit, lychee, mango, sometimes peach and apricot and those kind of things too. When we get a taste for that in whiskey, when we connect with that in whiskey, it is, I'm speaking about me now, utterly addictive. That's what Fettercairn brought to me. Those natural Fettercairns, the stuff that was hiding behind the emulsified, weird kind of, and I remember that original 16-year-old release, I think it was part roasted malt as well, or chocolate malt rather. it was kind of almost masking that tropical nature, whereas the much brighter, lighter, more natural presentation Fettercairns have released that to me. That's what I enjoyed about the 16-year-olds. It's what I enjoyed about the original Warehouse releases. Just fantastic stuff. Bear in mind that their 18-year-old is about 180 quid. This 16-year-old makes the 18-year-old look ridiculously priced. The 18-year-old makes the 16-year-old look fairly priced. What we need to do as a community is hold this up against its peers at 15, 16 years old. And I think if you're picking this up like I did, I picked this up on offer at 70 quid. It's a great deal. I couldn't look past it. Then I think it's very, very worth your time. If it's anything like the 2021 release, of course. Let's open it up and see. Let's get the seal off the Warehouse one as well, and then we'll open up the poll and see what you guys are going to have me uncorking here. Like I say, I'm ambivalent. Both of these are going to be opened and enjoyed at some point anyway. I'm excited to try them. I hope they're as good as my recent experience with Fettercairns, because something has happened under White and Mackay stewardship that I can't put my finger on, but it's bloody good. Something in White and Mackay have decided not to go for everything being mahogany coloured and emulsified within an inch of its life to be as smooth as possible. Something from White and Mackay is now fresh and vibrant and bright and fruity and alive and natural. And that, to me, is making a big, big difference. Oh my goodness, Wook's been in and bought us another dram. Peter Lee's been in as well. Wook has bought a very, very generous, let's raise up whatever we pour out of these bottles, we'll raise to Wook for another very generous dram. And Peter Lee's saying, say hello to Denise while I'm still painting at work. I'm getting restaurant ready. The return of the barflies. Eric Cunliffe is coming to Scotland. We're all coming to Peter Lee's restaurant. So I'm very glad you're painting for us, Peter. Peter, thank you very, very much for your drama, friend. Keep painting. Are we playing along in the background? It's nice to have you in, buddy, despite you being busy. And cheers to Denise, of course. Pedro is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 10 months, and he's got love spilling out here for Fettercairn in the chat. Hellswood is saying, all this talk of fortified wines, Andy's made me another cuppa and poured himself an Ardnamurchan Madeira. Fantastic, Helen. Stuart Walker runs Fettercairn. Stuart Walker runs Fettercairn. I suggest the Whisky Creation. Maybe it's a collaboration, Stuart Walker and Greg Glass, maybe. Is Greg still part of that? Pedro is saying, it would be so nice if White and Mackay did the same job with Jura as they did with Fettercairn. I couldn't agree more, Pedro. The Dramface podcast has got legs again. I can't remember if it's episode 25 or 26 that we talk about Jura at length. Graham Fraser is saying, is it since Greg Glass left Compass Box for White and Mackay, Roy? Graham, I think wait, I don't know. I've reached out to Greg. I would like to find a way to contact Greg, have a discussion with him, see if he's up for coming on the vPub to talk to us about this Renaissance. I want to talk to him about lots of things that's happening at White and Mackay. I want to talk to him about his really quite interesting, his own personal projects as well. And I want to talk to him about the Scottish Oak project and lots of things. So if it is Greg Glass, then if anybody knows Greg Glass or how that we could potentially, how that he could feel that this is a safe space for him to step into. Well, kind of safe at least. Jesse Artensalo is celebrating being a member of Barflies for 27 months with a wee cheers of the Glencairn as well. Thank you so much, Jesse. Right, let's jump into the poll. I can see what I'm opening here. Wee bit surprised at that. There's not much in it, 56% to 44%, but you want me to open this Warehouse 14 release with bourbon cask, refill cask, bourbon cask 81%, refill cask 7%, and then the remainder made up with beer casks. Let's get it in. Now, this is not a review, it's a neck pour, of course. Quite a weight. These are quite heavy bottles. I suspect that if they were to redesign the bottle, if the branding was to have happened in 2024, they would have maybe gone for lighter glass. but they're quite hefty. They're almost decanter-like in style. Quite a huge, huge base on the bottom here. Potentially for 750ml bottles, that the bottle, the dimensions would be the same, but the base would be a bit thinner. Maybe that's what the issue is there. I'm not sure. But they're quite heavy, but they are quite nice things. Let's give it a wee swirl first before I stick my nose in my chipped Glencairn. Isn't it annoying when you have a chip? You won't even see that. You just make out maybe a wee bit of a chip in the top of the glass there. Just need to remember to put it away from my lip and toss it in the recycling bin. Creamy. Very creamy, very light. Very clean fruit, white fruit. Definitely lychee, white grape, white melon, honeydew melon. Oh my goodness, absolutely melon. Very light, soft, sweet pickled ginger. And nice, sweet, like a caramel digestive biscuit, or so it's like a maltiness, but with a kind of brown sugar. Light sugar, but biscuity. Right up my street on the nose. Absolutely. I feel pretty confident I'm going to enjoy this bottle. Oh, lots of things I didn't expect. I went into this thinking, because of the nose, that it was soft on ABV, but there's lots of spice there. Lots of nice spice. There's also, it was much sweeter on arrival. It was almost like tablet. If anybody knows what tablet is, it's very, very sweet. Sugar and condensed milk based Scottish confectionery. The spice that I got on the nose is there. It is like a ginger spice, but soft, light ginger spice, white pepper. Let's go back in. This was £72. It's available cheaper. You can get it in the 60s elsewhere. I bought this in a bricks and mortar for £72. Oh, that's good. Bags of fruit. Apricot. Apricot. Peach. But not tinned peach, not like sweet overripe peach. Like, it's quite a fresh thing. Juicy fruit gum, juicy fruit chewing gum. Not bubble gum, not that kind of pink bubble gum, but this is kind of like a sugared sweet confectionery fruit. A wee bit of that tablet again, even almost a sense of a slight grittiness. If you've ever had tablet, you would know what I'm meaning. This gives me the sense that if you went into, I don't know, an independent bottler and picked up an indie, whatever it may be, SMWS, a Cadenheads or something, what's the ABV on this? 51.2% ABV. So it's probably been reduced a wee bit. But if you went in there and you picked up a bottle like this that you'd spent £70 for, and you had this flavour experience from it, I think you would be very pleased. This is the paler of the two. This one is 16 years old. This one is, I think there are vintages on it. They usually put vintages on it. Do they put it on the box? In the past, they have put the vintage of the distillate on the product, but I don't think they have this year. I maybe should have studied that beforehand before going live. Natural colour. Just to see those words on a white Mackay package. natural colour. Come on. Fettercairn, for me, in the last 2 or 3 years, has just come alive. Suddenly, it's a distillery that no one was looking at. When I talk about rejuvenation, Fettercairn. It is one of Speyside's fruit bombs, but where Glenturret is so much about bright, gorgeous orchard fruit, Fettercairn for me is much more about a tropical nature. Tropical fruit. This is a very light, creamy take on that. I'm not getting much of the kind of beer cask element at all. People with much more sensitive, much more dialed in palates out there than mine might get something, might get a wee bit of nicer bitter edge or a hoppiness or something, I don't know. The symbol that they use on the bottling for it is a hops symbol. But I'm very, very happy. £72 for this, I think, is very fair. I think anyone that likes, I have to say that this is probably spirit forward, despite the talk on the packaging of casks. This is much more spirit forward. But when we talk about Fettercairn and being tropical, that's something to harness and to celebrate. They're not getting the tropical fruit side from casks. They're getting it from their distillate when it's matured in probably American oak, ex-bourbon and refill casks. That's probably the thing that's going to enhance that tropical nature. And that's what's happening in this one. I'm excited to try the 16 as well, but that's not for tonight. It's for another time. End poll. 58.42 is where it ended. So we opened the right one. Thank you for helping me on it. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, so hearing Roy, Jura for the masses, Fettercairn for geeks, right? I think if you're just going to focus on the White and Mackay stable, absolutely. Where do you put Tam the Villain? Somewhere in the masses, absolutely. It's also a budget bottling. And then Dalmore is kind of this polished, kind of elevated thing that's, I hate being negative towards it because Dalmore is a distillery, fantastic, they make amazing stuff. But what they put out for us to buy is not anything of interest to me. We did White Mackay tasting at the Vaults with Richard Patterson, and his Fettercairn example was the 12-year-old. Gutted, Graham. 40% ABV, the 12-year-old. Peter Finnecane, it's good to see Peter. He's saying the fetters are removed from Fettercairn. Well, go out and give it a wee try and let me know what you think. Let me know what your take is on it. And Mikey Hayes in saying, you're making me want to have some tablet right now. Aquavita tablet is my kryptonite. You could get me doing anything for tablet. I know. Takes us right back to our childhood, right? That sugar rush, Mikey. It's just amazing. Whiskey Games is saying, it's Fettercairn's 200th birthday this year. Spot on. And they are due to release some special bottlings. I know I will be in the queue for one of those. I just want to go up and see them. Don't mention recycling. You know it hits a trigger. Sorry, Chris. You know what flickered when I said it? I'm going to put this glass in the recycling. Yeah, there will be recycling. I will be recycling very soon. Oh. Busted. Okay, so there we go. I hope, please, if you have connected with Fettercairn or if you've touched Fettercairn and you haven't really been swayed by it, put it in the comments under this video. Tell us your feedback on these things. Whiskey's getting more and more expensive, and I appreciate that I'm talking about a £70 plus. If you go into bricks and mortar for the 16-year-old, it's probably going to be 80 or north of £80 for the 16-year-old. But shop around, you can get it less. It's a lot of money for a bottle of whiskey, but in 2024 for a 16-year-old, I think it's fair. The warehouse releases tend to be quite a bit younger, but they always tend to be quite interesting. I wasn't a big fan of, I need to tell you the one I was not a fan of. It was Warehouse 2 release batch 4, 48.8% ABV. It's the only one that hasn't really sat with me. I think it's because of a wine cask element. Was it wine? I just don't remember now. Not sure. Is there a vintage on that? So, yeah, but the ones that I am vocal about, enthused about, I'll stand by. Even the fact that they're £70, I'll stand by it and say I think these are really, really, really good whiskies. and they are whiskies that are not typical. They're not unique maybe, but they are not typical. And it's difficult to find other things that are exactly like them out there in the landscape. I'm really glad to have this rejuvenated distillery back. Okay, let's move on to something completely different. Let's just kind of wipe the slate here. Graham Fraser is saying there's some better Fettercairn independent bottlings out there currently. Well, it'd be interesting. I wonder how much an independent bottler would be charging for a 16-year-old Fettercairn. I struggle to see them charging anything less than £70 for it, but your mileage may vary. Absolutely, if you can get a good, clean Fettercairn from an independent bottler, it's always been a very, very interesting product. Jimmy's saying, why didn't I get a Fettercairn sample when I was there? Silly old Brora. Jimmy, you were given the opportunity to have anything you liked, anything at all, my friend, and that remains open for you. Conrad is saying, sorry, Blackfen is saying, I've got round to Fettercairn. I haven't got round to Fettercairn yet, but recently purchased a Speyburn 15 on your recommendation. Well, Conrad, let's go with that. To put Speyburn and Fettercairn in the same, well, specifically Speyburn 15, their official bottling, and Fettercairn in the same bracket would be a mistake. But remember a time when the Speyburn 15s were much lighter and brighter, but these days they've become a lot more kind of sherry focused. Let me know what you're thinking. Are you enjoying them? And Erwin is saying, William Cadenhead's Fettercairn 2007 13-year-old single malt Scotch whisky, $114. So in pounds, it's about 90 quid, isn't it? Bit pricey. The official 16, we have to remember it's reduced, 46.4% ABV, but it's 70 quid. Helen is saying 14-year-old from a whiskey broker was a cracking dram. Fantastic. Whiskey broker as well. Just brilliant. £45. Always great value from Whiskey Broker. Alice saying, not a distillery, but a rising star independent bottler is Woodrow's. I haven't had a bad bottle yet. And I think we've just had a Dramface submission in that'll probably get built and go out somewhere next week or the week after. There's also a Woodrow's. It might be the first Woodrow's that we've featured. Oh, so look out for that. Jimmy Legg is saying, I was overwhelmed by your beauty when I saw you in your element. I felt the same about you. I felt like it was not that way. I felt it was like me viewing you in your element. Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see for something completely different. We've been bright and light and fruity and defined and detailed and visceral, and it's been nice. You know when you're doing the tour of any distillery and you hear how they've got narrow kind of narrow swan neck stills, and they've got ascending line arms, and they've got this bulb, and they're all trying to encourage reflux, and they're really like Fettercairn. They've got water on the outside of the stills. My goodness, a Fettercairn to encourage reflux, to encourage a lighter spirit, a fruitier style of spirit. And most of the new distilleries that have been built have got something going on there to add a bit of that in there. Slowing down the distillation, increasing the fermentation times, exaggerating and trying to just kind of amp the reflux and all these things to dial up the fruit element in whiskey. And then you go over to this distillery on an island on the west coast. You can start to guess as soon as you're ready, and you see that they're distilling quite quickly. They have, relatively speaking, by industry standards today, pretty short fermentation times. They have cloudy wort. They are putting the wash into these big, fat stills like you have never seen. And you can walk up to them, you can get really close to these stills and just see the scale and the shape and just how kind of big they are. Sorry, I just had a warning come up on the screen. Hope everything's okay where you are. I'm going to a West Coast distillery. It's on an island, but where it's very, very different. We want those choices to express in the spirit, don't we? And my goodness, does it ever express. I'm going to share with you a distillery right now that every time I pour a glass of it, I am literally focused on what's in the glass. I cannot sip what this distillery produces and think about peripheral things that's happening in the environment, it sucks me into the glass. It's like the black hole of malt whiskey. The gravitational pull is immense. The weight of this whiskey is immense. It is absolutely, absolutely unique. It is Lagg from the Isle of Arran. But despite it being West Coast, it's apparently a lowlander because of the line splits the island of Arran in half. This is the Kilmorey. Sorry, I should have put a bottle of Fettercairn up here alongside. I forgot about that, didn't I? That's the Kilmorey I had in my hand. The one that I bought a second bottle of, despite it being hard to get hold of. I managed to do it. Is this the one, actually? Yes, the inaugural batch 2, which was their sherry release. This is the second bottle. This is the one. This is it. This is the one I can't. So this is the second bottle, and I'm halfway through it. This is the one I can't stay out of. When I'm looking for that big, 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 I'm just going to have a tiny wee sip of this just to remind me. This is a monster. This is an absolute beast of a whiskey. And it's kind of funny the way that they describe it, the way that they talk about it. They don't really talk about it in these terms, but for me, there's lots of dark, salty chocolate there. It's very smoky. Yeah. I've had Ben Nevis's that taste like this. I've had Campbelltown whiskies that taste like this. It's not like Mortlach because it's just so smoky, I guess, just so kind of. But there are elements of Mortlach in this. There's just that kind of big, meaty weight to it. Is it only me that gets this in this stuff? Anyway, I've loved the Kilmorey. I've got the first batch over there. I didn't buy the third batch, which was a red wine release. I love the Kilmorey. I'm getting through that quite nicely. But I finally went out and purchased, because I can't buy any more of the batch 2 Oloroso cask. So this is what they've done here. They've released a core range to go alongside the Kilmorey, and they're calling it the Corrie Cravie edition. Now, it's quite interesting what they've done here. Very interesting. Again, it's just that kind of, let's do something a wee bit different from everyone else. The Kilmorey is very bourbon cask forward. And the ABV is 50% ABV. 50, I think. Yes. 50% ABV. And this being the kind of more sherry cask version, it's matured in bourbon casks, and it is a sherry finish. There might be some fully matured sherry that's involved in the vatting. I'm not sure. I think I might need my knife to get into this thing. These wee cellophane seals can be a nightmare when you keep your fingernails short. Let's just cut it. Again, if I was to slice my finger live in a vPub, that wouldn't make for good viewing, would it? I think we're done. What's interesting about this, though, bourbon maturation, sherry finish, they've put it out at 55% ABV. Virtually silent pour, round shoulders, right? Same as their sibling up in Loch Lomond. The cellophane comes off now once it's been cut. So I've had a wee sip of that batch 2. Let's see how the Corrie Cravie is doing in comparison. Oh, okay. Neck pour, sweeter, much more ripe straight away, much more light and sweet. Very reminiscent of kind of clean American oak fruity style of sherry. The sherry is here, It's a kind of, you know, the things that you would expect from a sherry. We're looking at raisins and things, but also here, you know, when you have a pack of dates, if you've ever had a pack of dates, and it's almost like they're coated in toffee caramel, isn't it? It's just the dates themselves, but it's that sweet, not dry, and smoky. Barbecue smoke. Sweet, syrupy, sticky barbecue. Almost like maple roast type notes. Honey, cured meats. Bold, strong, powerful, potent, but sweet. Cheers. Mm. Big. Oh my goodness. Big hit of, this is youthful. There's still youth here. The cask can't hide all of that. There's a big, youthful, young spirit note right in the center of this. And it comes across as a kind of sweet, poached pear type thing right in the center. But on the outside of that, oh my goodness, you've got, it's almost like it goes to a cool menthol, almost mint finish, like eucalyptus or menthol or cough sweets. It's cooling. So much happened. So much happened. Let's go again. So thick coating. It is still potent. It's coffee. There's bitterness. That Numic thing is there. Just where do I, how do I look at that? We need to always caveat these things when I uncork a bottle. It's not like it's always a first reaction. You can't really review anything. You need time. You need the whiskey to relax, to open up. You need time with it. But there's just kind of lots coming on. This should be quite a simple thing. This is very, very young. Lagg didn't start producing until 2019. You know, 4 years old is the maximum this whiskey can legally be. Maybe this year they'll have 5-year-old product available, but we're looking at a 4-year-old whiskey here. And there is youth right in the center of it, but there is just so much else. Let's go in again and see if I can get any of the kind of meaty elements that I loved so much from that batch too. To me, just because I'm looking for it, just because I decide I'm going to find it there, I'm kind of looking for meat stock like oxo cubes, beef hula hoops, and again, along with all of that kind of barbecue type notes. It's there. If we want to find it, it's there. But you cannot call this whiskey light. It is heavy and bold. And more than anything, undeniably, brutally Scotch. It has that big, heavy, thick gravitational pull of Scotch whiskey. Challenging. Thank you for bringing it at 55% ABV as well. Like I say, something completely different. Daniel McAvoy, that looks like a new name, Daniel. Lagg reminds me a lot of Lechik, so in my book, that's a win. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I like a big meaty weight, says Jimmy Legg, Aquaviti. Jimmy, you would absolutely like this. I know that you're sometimes a wee bit critical. There is a bit of youth in this, and it's right through the center of it. But it doesn't come across like you're sitting there having to suffer a glass of jaggy, sharp Numic. It's spirit. It's just, but it's there. It's just there's no hiding it or denying it. We're getting to enjoy this at a young age. Just savor it and just imagine what the future's going to be like. You just made a blend. That was a wet glass. Did I pour it into a wet glass? Oh, yes, I did. I made a blend of 2 single malt whiskies from the same distillery. So I made a single malt. I didn't make a blend, Ben. Anthony Lambert is saying, Aquavita, I have the Lagg Coricravi, a lovely big intense dram, punching way above its weight and age-wise. Anthony, I have to agree with you. I have to agree. And it's just that wee nose there. We're salty too. Hang on. When you taste it, it's just all the kind of, it's just kind of sweet meat and gravy and stuff now. Magic. Kyle Taylor is saying, yes, Roy, I always get methanol on Lagg. Methanol, but also got a cooling, and it's there now, especially in the finish. It's like you've just enjoyed a throat sweet or something. But there's I don't know if it's menthol or mint, but it's something like that. Falsgraph is saying, Jimmy, like I guess for you it might need a bit more age, but this is up and coming. I think, Klaus, I'll go one further than that. First sip I ever had of Lagg, didn't like it. It was at the Bon Accord, and I went, oh, I'm not sure about that. Pushed it to the side, the glass sat about. I think I finished the glass before I went home. Then I tried one here, one there, and you kind of realise that what you're actually tasting is something a wee bit challenging, which is why I'm calling this something completely different. It is no bones about it, not trying to be anything else. It's doing its own thing. It's doing it in a bolshy way. That Coricravi is a wee bit pricey. I think it's in the 60s. But I think we need to frame it. We need to look at it and say, okay, it's sherry finish. It's also 55% ABV. The Kilmorey, I think, is in the 50s, a bit cheaper, the bourbon cask one. But again, like a lot of the whiskies I've been sharing with you tonight, bizarrely, they've somehow managed to find a unique space. It's unique. Did you want an independent bottling of Mortlach? It wouldn't be peated, but you might get a big beast, kind of big, heavy, meaty type spirit from Mortlach. But how much do you need to pay for it? Forget about official bottlings. Diageo want a lung from you for those, even without an age statement. So you have to go to indies. And these days, Mortlach is not common from indies at all. You want something like this, these kind of really old school type Scotch malts that's bizarrely made from a brand new distillery. It's difficult to find it. Ben Nevis, Campbelltown, occasional Benromachs. Here and there you would be able to find things like this, but it's not common. But it is inextricably linked with Scotland and the Highlands, I would say, to Campbelltown. Helen is saying Lagg, definitely one that can only get better with age. And Falsgraph is saying Coricravi is around €60 in Germany, not really expensive these days. And Ben is saying the Signature 100 proof Ben Nevis ticks these boxes for £45 Aquavita. Celebrated it last week, didn't we, Ben? Absolutely, it does. Once that 100 proof Ben Nevis is gone, will they keep bringing them out? We all hope that they do. We really hope that they do. But this is a different take. It really is a different take. All right, I've got one more to share with you. I've actually got 2 more to share with you, but the other one I think I'm going to push till another vPub because we're already 2 hours in, and I have a very good quiz at the end for you tonight as well that I have actually prepared for tonight, and it does have a legitimate image question 5, and a legitimate asshat question at the end. It's not going to be an easy quiz. It's going to be one that does challenge you, hopefully soft at the beginning, gets a bit crunchy in the middle, finishes with a flourish, let's say. But I hope that you stay for the quiz at the end. But I've got one distillery that I need to just ask you to hang about a wee bit more for. Indulge me. Let's switch it right back up again. Let's take that gravitational pull that was that Lagg, that is that Lagg, and let's take ourselves out of that with something light, bright, and sparkly. Let's go for a lowland style now that's the exact opposite of the lowland style of Lagg that we've just been in. Let's look at a distillery that's just been kind of going step by step by step, getting gradually, quietly, slowly better and better and better. To the point that you try it and forget yourself and you say, oh yeah, I know this distillery, and you swig it and you go, this is fantastic. It's always been good. From the beginning, it was good. But we always had that kind of caveat. It is good, but it's still very young, still very spirity. Well, I'm going to uncork a bottle with you that I hope, because it's an evolution from one of my favourite new distilleries, open bottles, that has become something of a new distillery, permashelf for me. And that is Kingsbarns Dream to Dram. I really enjoy this stuff. It's not particularly expensive, and I'm going to do a Ben and dirty glass it. I'm going to put a wee sip of the Dream to Dram in this glass, because a bit like the Lagg, there's another one that's come across to replace this. I mean, it's slightly different. This is 46% ABV, the Dream to Dram. This was sub £50, not too expensive. First fill bourbon, STR, a little bit similar to the Wireworks makeup. But Kingsbarns, for me, I'm just about to nose this Dream to Dram right now, has always been a creamy, light, bright, elegant spirit. Delicate even. Could we say delicate? Aye, absolutely, especially in contrast to that Lagg that I've just enjoyed. Sweet, like Macintosh red or Pink Lady apples, sweet apple. Maraschino cherry, sweet, something like a sugared candied, like icing, pink icing. Wow. Pink wafer. Pink wafer. So if you've got a biscuit tin at home and you flip off the lid on a biscuit tin and you nose that kind of sweet coconut, macaroon coconut. Maybe a bit of toast on that too, a toasted coconut. Clean, sweet, light. Horlicks. Does anyone know what Horlicks is? So a Maltese is a candy in the UK, which is a malted candy, and Horlicks is a malted drink. So malty, cereal malty, but light. Everything about this is light. This is the Dream to Dram. Let's have a wee sip. Because it's now been replaced. And it's been replaced by, oh my goodness, really creamy, super creamy. Just sorry, I was distracted by the sip. Very, very creamy. Almost coconut cream, fondant creamy. Quite an incredible wee sip. 46% ABV, exact same cask makeup. Well, it's not the exact same cask makeup, but the same descriptor on the box. But this time it says ex-bourbon barrels and STR barriques. STR, of course, shaved, toasted, and what is it? Recharred? Yeah, shaved, toasted, and recharred. It's a good way of rejuvenating casks. It's another one of those. I think I need to grow my fingernails if I'm going to continue to do this. A nice wee cork detail there with the birds on the top, although you won't be able to get to see it. The camera will try. There we go. The doves on the top, because this expression is called Ducat, and that is a dovecote or a place for you to keep pigeons and doves. And in Scotland, that would be a ducat. Okay, Ben, it's your dirty glass. It's my way of sneaking in an extra dram or two. Oh, it's quite oily. 46% ABV as well, the same as the Dream to Dram. Here's the subtitle used for this one. Steady improvements and almost 10 years old. They put their founding year down as 2014. Kingsbarns didn't actually have any distillate until 2015. Okay. The Dream to Dram is fresh on my palate. Okay, still creamy. Still got that fondant nature about it. Still everything that you would expect, but immediately I'm struck by much more vanilla, caramel toffee, vanilla, slightly richer. Makes sense. Creaminess is still there. A bit of dryness, a wee bit of strawberry. Neck pour, maybe not giving up as much as the Dream to Dram. It's been open for a long time. Let's get it all over the glass. Let's just cover the glass, coat the glass, get as much of that round my anaesthetized nose as I can possibly get. Definitely caramel, definitely toffee. Simpler at first approach, I think. The other one was bringing lots of creams and fondants and things. This is simpler. This is orangier, a wee bit more citric, Satsuma, sweet orange. Anyway, let's go on and see if it can what it can do in the palate. There is a hint. I'm not being fair to this to even bring it up as my first note. It's not being fair. There is a hint of spirit, new make spirit to this. But what's going to strike you is how this could literally, somebody could say, oh, try the new 10-year-old or the 12-year-old, whatever. And you would just go with it. Maybe not. Maybe because what I've been sipping tonight is there's been a lot of youth in what I've been sipping tonight. But this is now becoming a polished, mature, established, little by little by little malt whiskey. I tried this. I tried it at the Bonaccord. Was it Bonaccord? Tried it in a few places and thought, it doesn't really do anything over what I've loved about the Dream to Dram for me. It didn't. But of course, what I need to do to connect with it is buy a bottle and actually sit down and spend some time with it to get to know it, rather than just having a dram in a really busy pub. You know, there's a big difference between enjoying a dram in a pub and sitting at home in a quiet and clean environment and just taking it all in and trying to analyze and dial in and just try and dissect what it actually is. But what we're talking about here is an inexpensive bottle of lowland whiskey. Let's hold it up against. It's not Daffmill. Daffmill's very fermenty, bready, doughy, wee bit lactic at times. This is lighter and more elegant, but it is malty. It is malty, a wee bit like the other one, a wee bit like the kind of Horlicks, the malt, the Malteser thing. This is like taking the freshness and the creamy fondant, almost the spirit-driven thing of the Dream to Dram, and just kind of giving it a little bit of a caramel layer. And when I say a caramel layer, I'm speaking about the real lovely, delicious caramel. I'm talking about a richness, vanillas. This Kingsbarns is an affordable, approachable, natural, flavour-forward take on Glenmorangie 10, Glenfiddich 12. The mass market flavours that we have been sipping in a diluted form for decades, this has in a concentrated form. There is a hint of spirit. Yet I predict pineapple cake. Yeah, I predict that I am going to come to enjoy this every bit as much as I've been enjoying Dream to Dram. I could have picked Lindor's. I could have picked... We're spoiled for choice. That's the point of this thing, isn't it? We're literally spoiled for choice. I could have picked so many other new distilleries, but I reached for the one that I was connecting with, me personally, in the hope that you would step up and say, yes, me too, but also in the hope that you would step up and say, oh, no, what? You've forgotten about this. We're spoiled for choice. There's so much to choose. Leave it in the comments underneath. And while you're doing that, remember what Frank and I were talking about earlier and leave a wee like too. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram to say you touched on a point there that gets overlooked a bit too often. Unless you... sorry, Jimmy. Just jumped. Where are you? Yeah, you touched on a point there that gets overlooked a bit too often. I'll keep my finger on the mouse so it doesn't jump this time. Unless you've been through at least one bottle over a decent period of time of a particular whiskey, you really don't know it. That's right. And I think we have to caveat these vPubs where I just do this, uncork and pour and give a reaction, because I guarantee you, and I need to reserve the right to change my mind the next time I appear on the vPub. And instead of it being a neck pour, I'm kind of at this level in the bottle. I've definitely got a more evolved opinion on the whiskey. But the neck pour is still valuable because you go into a bar and a pub and we say, yeah, don't buy until you try. What are you going to do? You're going to go into a shop and they're going to pour you like a teaspoon in a glass to let you try it. You're in a whiskey shop. If you're in a fortunate position where you have a whiskey shop that will let you try before you buy. What about going into a whiskey bar or a pub or whatever? You're never really in a situation like you are at home where you can really sit down and kind of really get to know or analyze it. So that's what the neck pour is, a little bit like a first date, just an instant exposure to something to work out. And you won't be able to completely colour the canvas, but you'll be able to shape it all out and work out what's going to go where and what's happening. The neck pour does betray a hell of a lot. I've got other places that I can review whiskies. I've got Dramface, the recycled reviews when I've emptied and drained the bottle and things. The vPub, and when I'm uncorking things and just sharing my experiences with you, is a much more kind of immediate, instantly consumable thing. And it means that it's difficult. It means that I miss things and stuff. So it has to be caveated, Jimmy. You're absolutely right. Hey, Whiskey with Molly saying how amazing that Fife are now producing so much great whiskey and producing a great festival as well that I unfortunately missed. I will not miss Limburg. I'm booked for Limburg. I hope to see you in Limburg. That would be amazing if I could see you there. But I missed Fife, and I got so far. It was just a family issue. It was sick children, unfortunately, but there was a babysitter in place, and the sick child was being taken care of by mum. But there was a babysitter in place for another child. I went all the way to the bus bag on my shoulder, sausage rolls in Scotty Munro's bag ready for us to eat, and everything was ready. Just about to step on the bus and the phone went, and my other kid got sick too. That's what happens when you get sickness at home. The sickness tends to spread. And I was just about to step on the bus, had to turn around and get a taxi back home. I missed Fife. Limburg instead has been booked up. So I'm heading over to Germany at the end of April. I hope that I have a chance to meet some of you there. How did I end up speaking about Limburg? I'm not sure. Maybe because I saw Falsgraff's name or something. Anyway, Graham Fraser is saying some fine whiskies coming out of Fife right now. Daft Mill, Kingsbarns, Lindors, Inchdearney. Let's hope the new Eden Mill distillery will improve on its former output too. Not just the output, but on the presentation, the pricing, and the just weird positioning. But I agree with you on everything else. Absolutely, Graham. In fact, I agree with you on it all. Brian Stormont, good to see you. Brian, he's saying Kingsbarns Dream to Dram has been brought back. Not sure for how long, but I got a bottle a couple of months ago. Delicious drop. Benromach cast strength, amazing, in my opinion. Benromach is the cast strength version, and then you've got the kind of sherry take on Kingsbarns, which is the Balcony as well. Doing good stuff, fair pricing. Let's go back to that Ardnamurchan, use them as the kind of metric, the stick that we're going to measure all others by. That's really the thing if you want to see how much Ardnamurchan has been embraced. Ben, Whiskey with Molly, saying, I need to share some of my Lindors with you. You're very welcome to, my friend. Let's arrange that. Falsgraff is saying, Kingsbarns is not one to blow your socks off, but to me it's a very nice, light, unobtrusive sipper. I like it. It's my point here. Klaus, perfect. Steady, not loud, shouty, just gradual, easy, drip by drip. Grinding improvement. Earning their stripes. That's the sense I get from them. Another great vPub, thanks Roy, from Al as he buys me a generous dram. Thank you very much, Al. Raise this wee ducat dram and say thank you for your generosity and your kind words. Cheers. 2 hours 16 in, and I haven't even started the quiz yet. Just the way of it is, it does mean that there is one distillery left that we will talk about another. Hopefully, there will be other rising stars to make this a topic that we can continue to get excited about going forward. Think of all the world whiskies that we could have touched upon, coming from India, the United States, coming from mainland Europe, all over the planet. Think about all of the distilleries right in our back door that we could talk about rising stars. If they keep things fair, if they keep prioritizing the honest, the integrity, the flavor, we're just going to embrace it, and we're going to talk about it. The variety is confusing right now. It's dizzying. There's a lot of stuff out there, maybe arguably too much at times. But some of it has the ability to float to the top. And some of it floats to the top in unexpected ways. It's been there. It's just been doing its thing under the surface. And suddenly somebody, something, a moment, whatever, draws your attention to it, and suddenly you're, wow, it's here. The biggest example tonight is probably Glasgow Distillery, honestly speaking. But there's so many more. For us, as open-minded, promiscuous, adaptable whiskey botherers, the future for whiskey exploration is very, very bright. Wonderful. Rising stars are there. We can watch them rise. We can literally watch them rise. We can participate in their rise. It's a good time to be a whiskey botherer. I do still very much believe that, and I hope you do too. Blair Stevenson is here. Good to see you, buddy. He's saying, good evening, all good evening, Aquavita. Didn't manage to make tonight, but popping in to say hello. We'll catch up on the replay. Thank you very much for doing so, my friend. Hope you enjoyed the festival at the weekend. And Ben is saying, can't talk about Ireland. Hinch released a 15-year-old whiskey this week, despite being a 3-year-old distillery. Sourced. So... what is it? Cooley? What is it? Yeah, Danny Hebington. I mean, it's just confusing. Danny Hebington is saying, now I'm easily influenced, but I just bought that 1717 Manthania tonight, maybe next week. Aquavita. Did you bought it tonight, Danny? Danny, I tell you what, you've said, and I know that not incidental. I know that a direct effect of me speaking positively about whiskies tonight mean that people go out and spend money on whiskies. Danny Hebington, and you're in Scotland. If you buy that Manthania and you sip it and you decide it is not worth £59, I'll send you the £59 and you can give me whatever's left of your open bottle. I don't care that it's open. How about that for a deal? That's how confident I feel. Desi Vleeland is in tonight. Good to see you, Desi. I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're planning to join us in Limburg this year. Alistair McPhail, you star, he's in as well. I don't bother whiskey. Whiskey bothers me. No, we are whiskey botherers. We are bothered by whiskey and we bother about whiskey. To take care of something, to bother about something, I am a whiskey botherer. Anyway, I've enjoyed bringing 5 very, very interesting whiskies. Wireworks from England, Glasgow Distillery right in my backyard, Fettercairn rejuvenated, Lagg from the lowlands of Arran, fantastic stuff. Like I say, the black hole, the gravitational pull of whiskey. And then its antithesis from the East Coast, Kingsbarns. Now the theme across all 5 of these, we go back to our yardstick, our measuring stick from the beginning, Ardnamurchan. Are they priced fairly? Is it sacrificing yield and efficiency and mass market and all of these things and dilution and stuff for flavour, for integrity, for genuine engagement? I think we can go through. And while not all of them will make all of the markers all of the time, there is a common theme here, and it's present in all of these whiskies tonight. I think it's a decent wee outturn. What say you? Let's get ready for the quiz. Jimmy Legacy, I'm pretty sure Danny Hebington bought me a bottle. That's how I know he is a great man. Danny Hebington, Roy, my man, most of the 150 bottles are influenced by you, and I've yet to be disappointed. Hey, and we've yet to raise a glass together, Danny. Words like that come with hugs. I hope to see you soon, buddy. Whiskey with Molly saying long drive today and 2 episodes of Dramface Pod. The Grail Girls are wonderful. Well, the Dramface podcast, we released 25 publicly earlier this week. Episode 26 goes out on Monday to Dramface members and then on Saturday to the public. So you don't have long to wait for more on the Dramface catch-up. They say St. Aquavita. Of course, I'll be in Limburg. Wouldn't want to miss seeing everyone. Magic. I can't wait to see you there, Daisy. Fantastic. Good to see everyone. Okay, let's strap in for a wee bit of a quiz at the end, where I do think I've managed to put a quiz together without mistakes tonight. Thank you very much for your understanding of last week. It happens sometimes. Like I say, I'll look after things a wee bit better and prepare a wee bit better like I've done so tonight. However, I don't think that this quiz tonight is going to be particularly kind. If you get a 10 out of 10 tonight, you will not feel hollow. Whiskey with Molly Ben. I think it was you that made that comment last week. I think it will be a very, very deserved thing. There are very straightforward questions tonight, and there are also banana skins, and there are, of course, inevitable ass-hattery questions at play too. Good luck, everyone. What am I going to raise a glass with you all? I'm going to go back to the Manthania, the Glasgow Manthania. And immediately I get a dry nut mix. That's what I'm getting. Sorry. It's like, those scoops that you get. You put it in a bag, you weigh it, and you pay by the weight. Raisins and currants and nuts. That's what it smells like. Cheers, everyone, and good luck for the quiz at the end. My goodness, thank you for hanging out with me. Q 4 out of 10, says Ben. I think you might do a wee bit better than that. Good luck, everyone. Question 1. Which of these is a legitimate release from White Peak Distillery? First mistake. No capitalisation on white. Doesn't matter. Which of these is a legitimate release from White Peak? Is it A, Alter Ego, B, Minerai, C, Kuduro? We're looking for a legitimate release from White Peak, a Wireworks release. Rick is saying, Aquaviti, any questions about pronunciation? Don't think so. Not tonight, Rick. Are you worried about that? Is that an in-joke? Have I missed it? Mikey Hayes saying C are probably all of them. Jerry Miller is saying A and C. Pete Ted is saying A. Nicholas is saying C. James Cadden is saying A. Chris Pollock is saying A. Gino Camo is saying ABC. Not sure about A, but guessing ABC. C, 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 all over the place. C, just guessing. Be very careful. Be very careful, okay? Which of these is a legitimate release from White Peak Distillery? I suggest strongly that you select one. Which of these is a legitimate release? A, Alter Ego, B, Minerai, C, Kuduro. I can tell you that Alter Ego is legitimate. Kuduro is legitimate. Minerai is made up by me, the opposite of Kuduro, Japanese for master. Minerai would be apprentice. They don't have it yet. Alter Ego is legitimate though, and Kuduro is legitimate. As long as you picked A or C or both A and C, absolutely spot on. Well done. Thomas F is saying A was the shallower cuts release. Kuduro is the main release. Superb. Absolutely. Alter Ego was the cool little experiment that they did. Glad you're enjoying White Peak, Thomas. It's a great, great spirit. Question 2. Lindores Abbey has a release with a name loosely reminiscent of an active whiskey tube channel. What is it? Lindores Abbey, one of the Fife distilleries, has a name that is kind of a wee bit reminiscent of a very active YouTube channel talking about whiskey. What is it? Is it A, Aquaviti, B, Drum Mash, C, First Fill? Which of those is a legitimate Lindores Abbey release? A, Aquaviti, B, Drum Mash, C, First Fill. Greg's Whiskey Guide. Good to see you, Greg. Haha, know that, been there. Loosely reminiscent is loosely defined. You're always sharp, Mr. Legg. Yes, absolutely. A, Aquaviti, one of their releases, Aquaviti. I'll never forget, back in, I don't know when it was, 2018, 2019, I was up at the Stirling Whisky Festival, and a gaffer up at Lindores was there, and he spotted me and he said, I've got something to show you. And it was the only thing that they'd released back then. And he gave me a sip of Aquaviti, but it's not whiskey. It is an infusion. It's a liqueur, if you like, whiskey-based liqueur. So it's very cloves to me, clove forward. But it makes a lovely cocktail. Brian Stormont is having a wee laugh at my expense. Good stuff. So hopefully lots of you with 2 out of 2 as we go into question 3. What is unique about the stills at Fettercairn? What is unique about the stills at Fettercairn? A, their spirit stills are larger than their wash stills. B, water-cooled necks resulting in a dark teal discoloration to the copper. Or is it C, they are cropped, they have flat tops due to the size restrictions of the original stillhouse in the 19th century? What is unique about the Fettercairn stills? Wash stills bigger than spirit stills, water-cooled necks, or chopped, cropped, flat tops? Guys, Whisky Guide is saying that's why Roy needs to go there and bottle a special Aquavite release. An Aquavite with a V, that's right. That's absolutely right. Are we asking about Dalmore? Warner is in, One Glass Man. Good to see you, buddy. It is Warner, isn't it? One Glass Man. So there's someone else in social media that's got a name very similar to you, Warner, and I always worry that it's I'm getting it wrong. Good stuff. Good stuff. Most of you have got this absolutely on the money. The spirit stills are not larger than the wash stills. They do not have cropped flat tops due to original stillhouse sizes at Fettercairn, but they do have water-cooled necks that result in dark teal, a kind of weird kind of purpley blue copperish colours. I've never been to Fettercairn. This picture that I found online, courtesy of AbFab Travels, apparently, I don't know who they are, but this is who took this really cool picture I wanted to share with you. If you look at their images of the spirit stills here, you can see that it's almost like a really dark slate colour. But the colour of the box for Fettercairn, and especially the highlights and around the top, is kind of tarnished copper, and the teal is all kind of taken from that inspiration. So there you go. So water runs down the neck of the spirit stills. It's collected at the bottom and recycled and returned back up to help keep the neck of that still very, very cool in order to increase reflux and fruity flavours. Question 4. What? That's not right. This must be question 6. No, it's question 4. It is question 4. I just saw the image there. The image question has not been yet. It's me that's having a flaky moment. It is question 4. I hope you've all got 3 out of 3. Loch Lomond release 4 seasonal releases, or as they call them, crop releases each year. Their second crop final release, the ploughing edition, has just been released and features what? What is specific about Loch Lomond's ploughing edition, the last and their second of their second crop final release? A, it is an ex-Islay cask maturation. Wee bit of peat in there maybe. B, it's an extended 7-day fermentation, playing with the spirit a bit. Or C, they have a 5-year age statement on it. Recent release from Loch Lomond, the final of their second crop, which means they've got 8 out there. What does it feature? Ex-Islay cask, peaty, extended fermentation, or a 5-year age statement? You're all on the pulse. You've all got your finger on the pulse. Lachlan McKenzie is in saying A, but Trixie. Good to see you, Lachlan. Alice saying read this earlier tonight. Did you read it on Dramface, which is why there's a wee Dramface icon there, buddy? Hope you're enjoying Dramface. Dramface is going great guns. Really terrific stuff. Thank you all for everyone that supports it. The team love you for it. And the One Glass Man is saying it has to be an Islay cask. Spot on, Warner. It is ex-Islay cask maturation. Nice little kind of link up there. John Campbell obviously came across from Lefroy. Maybe got some contacts there, able to pick up some ex-Lefroy casks, and they mature some of his Loch Lomond to give it a wee bit of a smoky lick. Sugar Kitty celebrating Dramface, thank you very much. And Hellswood also celebrating Dramface and a 4 out of 4 alongside Pear, Mickey Hay, Jerry Miller, Alan Smith, One Glass Man, Nicholas, Chris Pollack, Rob Smith, Desi Leland, Petehead, most of you. My goodness, it's a house of 4 out of 4s as we go into the picture question. This is a picture submitted by Daniel Williams in the Netherlands, and I think it's a wee bit brutal. But there's a big, big clue right in the centre of it. I hope it helps. What are we looking at here in this picture? A, Loch Lomond Distillery, B, Bushmills Distillery, or C, White Peak Distillery? Starting to get tricky from here on in. You're all doing very, very well. Big scores. Desi is saying, I know this one. Alistair is saying, so follow Desi. She's really confident. Alistair is saying, Dramface is the only place I don't use my real name. Superb. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're having fun with it. And Graham is saying, phew, late change. Well done, Graham. Still holding on to a 4 out of 4. Okay, tough one for me. Never been to all three. Yeah, I've not been to Bushmill. Oh, that's not true. I have been to Bushmills. Way before I liked whiskey, I visited Bushmills. But that would have been the 1990s. Didn't really care about whiskey. White Peak I've never visited yet. I imagine it's very soon. Loch Lomond I have had the fortune to visit. But I'm asking you what we're looking at here. We are on this road closed sign here. You can see it's covered in black. And that black covers a lot of the buildings, lampposts, trees, any kind of solid permanent surface around this distillery is kind of covered in this black. I think it's Aspergillus nigrum, I think it's called. But it's basically the fungus that feeds on alcohol around distilleries and in warehouses and things. We are in one of the most concentrated maturation spots in Scotland, Loch Lomond in Alexandria. Superb. Superb. You're very, very knowledgeable. That's amazing. I think Daniel Williams is going to be impressed by how many of you got that spot on correct. Superb. Question 6. Glasgow, this is really, really awful question. Terrible question, Roy. Glasgow Distillery's first release appeared in 2018. I'm just going to ask you, what was it called? In 2018, what did Glasgow Distillery call their first release? It's incredible that it's been out there for 6 years now. Getting on for 6 years nearly. A, they called it the 1770 inaugural. B, they called it Glasgow's first release. Or they called it C, Glasgow 1770 release number 1. This is going to take the wheels off a lot of you. Pierre is saying, we'll skip this one, Aquavite. By all means, give it a guess. Roy's talking to himself in the third person. He's on his way to megalomania. Am I? Oh, wow. Wow. Falsgraf. C, as far as I remember. Gabriel Welding, C. Hoyt, C. Pedro, C. James Cadden, C. Dacey, C. Big Ed, C. Jimmy Jazz, C. Good to see Big Ed. Good to see Jimmy. Greg's Whiskey Guide in Paris, C. Whiskey with Molly saying it was Macar's gin. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, Ben. It was gin. But of course, this is the vPub. We're talking about malt whiskey. And you're absolutely all spot on. It was simply called, and I think I've got a bottle. It's almost within reach, but I'm not going to reach down to get it. Still sealed, 50cl bottle. It was indeed called Glasgow 1770 release number 1. Well done. Question 7. News broke this week about what relating to Ardbeg this week? A, they released news of their 2025 Fisheel release. B, details of the new Ardbeg house. Or C, a huge expansion to Clydeside maturation warehousing. Ardbeg released news this week about the 2025 Fisheel release, details of the new Ardbeg house, or C, a huge expansion to Clydeside maturation warehouses. I have one, empty from the start, just as a souvenir, says Greg's Whiskey Guide. Talking about Glasgow, I think. 1770 single malt, just saying. Hillswood is saying, dread to think what that's going to cost. Yeah, I've got my own thoughts there too. I really have. I'm terrified. James Morgan, B. If in doubt, ask a nerd. Spot on. 2025 official release. I don't even know what the 2024 official release is going to be. A huge expansion to Glencadam maturation warehouses. Maybe that's happening. It's not newsworthy though, is it? It's just something that happens in the background. But certainly details of the new Ardbeg house. This is where Ardbeg have bought over the Isla Hotel. That in itself isn't a bad thing. I only ever had a bad experience in the Isla Hotel. The people that were owning it there it wasn't fun for me at all. We had one drink in there and we said we weren't in a hurry to go back. So if they do something positive with it, fantastic. Here's a wee artist's impression for you to have a look at here. A bit garish, a picture, but you can kind of get the spirit or the sense of the thing. What I'm worried about is that they make it, Ardbeg, we're the only whiskey in Islay, we're the only whiskey in Scotland, that nonsense. Brand, dull. It's in Port Ellen. It's the Isla Hotel. They're going to call it Ardbeg House. They're going to revive an old traditional local bar in there in Courtyard. That suggests that they might make it something inclusive and representative of the island itself, rather than putting brand first. They need to realise that by embracing other brands, embracing culture, embracing people, the meaning of it all, rather than logos and brands and positioning, that they might actually make something that's worthy and celebrated and successful. Ardbeg are a good distiller, a good product. They are not the only one. They're doing this thing with their money, but they could make it something much more meaningful. Please be in canny hands. Question 8. What was the result of a bombing raid over Auchentoshan in 1941? What happened after a bombing raid in 1941? The bombing raid destroyed a warehouse. A bombing raid severely damaged the fermentation room, halting production for over a year. Or a bombing raid left a crater so large that it's now used as a cooling water reservoir. A bombing raid destroyed a warehouse. B, it severely damaged the fermentation room, halting production. Or C, it left a big crater that they turned into the cooling water pond. Thought it was dull, overpriced, and had disinterested staff, to be honest. Pity, really. So you had a negative experience at the Isle Hotel as well. So did we. We experienced rudeness, actually. Shocking rudeness. We were not in a hurry to go back at all. Completely opposite of everything else we experienced on the island. Kyle Taylor is saying tough question. It really is. What was the result of a bombing raid over Auchentoshan in 1941? It either destroyed a warehouse, it severely damaged production, or it left a crater that they turned into a cooling pond. Okay, you've done very, very well. Gino Como is saying B, but I like C. I was on a tour at Auchentoshan, and the tour guide told me that it was the pond was created by a bombing raid, but then later admitted that it's not true and it's an old tale, and there are photos of pre-war Auchentoshan where the cooling pond is in place. It didn't halt production by destroying the fermentation room for over a year because it was World War II. Auchentoshan was already silent, but the bombing raid did destroy an Auchentoshan warehouse. That's what happened to Auchentoshan in 1941. Knowledgeable whiskey folk absolutely got it right, like you always do. Second from last, question 9. Kingsbarns in Fife is now owned by the Weems family. But the project to build it was initiated by whom? A. Malky, a St Andrews shop owner. D. Doug, a local golfer and caddy. C. Davy, a Fife gillie and fisherman. How was Kingsbarns initiated? Who was the original founder? Malky from St Andrews, the shop owner, Doug, local golfer and caddy, or Davy, a Fife gillie and fisherman? Spot on. There's going to be lots of 10 out of 10s tonight. I thought it was going to be hard. Ben Whiskey with Molly saying Doug. He's an absolute legend. One's a black lab like me. Well, I've just pinned a comment, and hopefully I'm mindful enough as well to pin a link as well in the description. But Doug is not only founded Kingsbarns Distillery, and he was a local golf caddy, but he has also just started his own YouTube channel, which is going to be thickly whiskey themed, but also to do with travel and kind of local things. He's only got 2 or 3 videos up already. He's got 260 subs or something just now. But I've put the link up there and for you all to go over and see what this guy's up to now. And that he's starting a wee YouTube journey. And if it's something that you like to follow, give him a wee like and say hello to him from the Barflies. I've yet to meet Mr. Clement. I'm looking forward to the day that I do meet Doug and his black lab, Ben. But that's the story, and it's an incredible story behind Kingsbarns. Okay. The link is there for you all to click on. Go over and give him a wee like and a subscribe as we roll into the ass hat at the end. Let's see who's on 9 out of 9 tonight. Oh my goodness, so many. Jimmy Legg, Kyle Taylor, Hellswood, Nicholas, James Cadden, Desi, Big Ed, Per Christensen. Good to see you, Per. Danny Hebington on an 8 and Graham Fraser also on an 8. Graham, my goodness. Sugar Kitty on a 9. We call out Graham Fraser tonight. What happened? Chris Pollack on a 9. Oh, missed it. Rob Smith on a 9. Fantastic. Okay, there's got to be 9 out of 10s. Sorry, 10 out of 10s celebrated tonight. Alistair McPhail on a 9 out of 9 as well. Rory Dolgetty, good to see you in, Rory, on a 9 out of 9. Good luck, everyone, with an ass hat at the end. Al on a 9 out of 9 as well. Superb. The ass hat at the end, a wee bit different tonight, but it is very much an ass hat question. And it's not easy. Which Chivas Brothers, Pernod Ricard, malt distillery will become Scotland's 3rd largest in the next 2 years? News has been breaking over recent weeks and months about a huge expansion to a very specific Chivas Brothers distillery. I'm asking you, which one is it? Is it A, the one in Elgin that's as old as Fettercairn? Now, the age of Fettercairn came up tonight. I don't know if that'll help you. Whoops, what on earth? That's nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. And I hope, can you see that? I'll try and read it. It is the one that's built on the old Imperial site. It's going to continue like this. Or is it C, the one in Charleston of Aberlour, with a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 16-year-old, and an 18-year-old in its core range? Which of these distilleries is set to be the 3rd largest malt distillery in Scotland in the next year or two? The one based in Elgin, that's the same age as Fettercairn, A. The one built on the old Imperial site, B. Or C, the one that's in Charleston of Aberlour that happens to have a 12-year-old as well as a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old all in its core range. Mikey Hayes saying A, One Glassman is saying B, Falscraft is saying C. Lachlan McKenzie is saying A, Peahead is saying A. Alistair McPhail is saying it's the Russians who's hacking into my site. James Cadden is saying C. Oh, Big Ed is saying B, and Per Christensen is saying A. This is very typically an ass hack question. It is splitting the crowd. Not everyone is going to catch this tonight. Thanks to everyone who's staying with me so late. I'm really glad and grateful for your support and your company. It's amazing. Okay. Ben is saying C now. He's changing it to C. Andy Cross is saying A. Good to see you, Andy. Chris Pollock, B. It's all over the place. Jimmy Legg is saying C. Graham Fraser is saying A. Milton Duff. Danny Hebbington is saying A. And Whiskey with Molly is saying no idea, just go and C. I can tell you that the Chevis Brothers Pernod Ricard Distillery to become Scotland's third largest in the next 2 years, as Graham Fraser says, is Milton Duff. The one in Charleston of Aberlour with a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, and 18-year-old is, in fact, Aberlour. The one built on the old Imperial site is Dalmunnock, which means it's A. Milton Duff and Elgin from 1824, the same year as Fettercairn. As any James Carden is saying no. Jimmy Jazz has slipped on a 9. He's on a 9 out of 10. Not too shabby, says One Glassman on an 8. Rick Johnson on 8. Codger on an just it slipped up there on an 8. Greg's Whiskey Guide staying at 7. Kyle Taylor 8 for Mikey Hay. Whiskey with Molly. Graham Young is on a 9. Peter on a 9. Rory in Edinburgh, head of the Ensign Ure, scoring his 10 out of 10. Well done, Rory Dalgetty. Amazing. Hellswood, Helen and Andy, maybe just Helen. Don't know who's playing tonight, but congratulations on a 10 out of 10 tonight. Superb. Rob Smith celebrating a 10 out of 10. Desi in the Netherlands celebrating a 10 out of 10. Terrific, guys. Fantastic. Yeah, beauty. Jimmy Legg. Jimmy Legg a 10 out of 10 tonight? No. No, I think it's just Helen and Jimmy celebrating backwards and forwards. And Al is saying 10 out of 10 with a little help from the barflies. Hey, there's no shame in it, Al. Take it and run with it. Helen is still celebrating getting your beauty. Nice job on the 10, says Graham Young to everyone. And Alistair McPhail is saying 10, running around the room. Alistair McPhail, nailing it. Gino is saying good on the 10s. Congratulations to everybody. Fantastic. Well done, everyone. Well done, everyone. It was a tricky quiz tonight. If you've got a 10 tonight, you've navigated things very, very well. I hope that some of these rising star distilleries kind of navigate the future well too. I hope that they go forward to do amazing things and continue to have their stars rising. I think they could, if as long as they kind of, I don't know, think about putting people first, maybe using Ardnamurchan's philosophy just as a suggestion. They seem to be doing everything right. There's no reason why they can't. They've already worked out what the magic sauce is in recent years to put it in the central vision or focus and take it out of our periphery to make us start to think about the Kingsbarns, Glasgow, Fettercairn, to think about these new distilleries that are bringing really quite different things like Lagg. Just think of the Benromachs and the Glenturrets and the Loch Lomonds and the distilleries that we celebrated 2-3 years ago when we talked about this. It doesn't seem like it's difficult, and yet so many get it a wee bit skew with. The dram just came in from Per Christensen. No comment or anything, but Per, it's wonderful to see you back in again, my friend. It's wonderful to have you here. I'll finish off this wee drop of. Oh, what do we have here? This must be the Lagg. I think this is the Lagg. Cheers, Per, my friend. Thank you for your dram. Thank you so much. Peter is saying, and with that, I call it a day. Time to hit the sack. Thanks as always for organising Aquavita, and thanks to all of you, and see you next time. Slanchava. Here's what to say, enjoyable vPub. Cheers. See you next week. Make sure not to spoil your good lady wife on Sunday, of course. Mother's Day comes Sunday. In the UK, Mother's Day at least. Raise a sweet glass. As Alistair McPhail buys me a dram as well. Another banger, Roy. Great topic, Alistair. Thank you very much. Big hugs to you. Thank you for participating tonight, and congratulations for your 10 out of 10, my friend. Cheers to you. What is this I'm finishing here? Unmistakably the Manthania. Fantastic, from Glasgow. Cheers to you, Alistair McPhail. Danny Hebbington has bought me a dram too to say cheers, mate, and until next week. Yes, we'll be back next week. Looking forward to welcoming you all there again. Of course I am, Danny. And in the meantime, thank you very much for your dram. I'm not going to keep just healing these because I can feel that Manthania is still hanging around a wee bit. But I'll take a wee sip to raise a glass to your health, Danny. And a wonderfully generous dram also coming in from Al saying, my second ever 10 out of 10 deserves another dram for Roy. I think it's you, Al, that deserves a dram, but I'll take it as gracefully as I possibly can. As graciously, sorry, as I possibly can. What am I sipping here? Well, I think I'm going right back to the start of the night now. I think this is the Glasgow, the original. Cheers, Danny. Thank you to you. Oh, sorry, Danny and Al. All right, and then finally, I'll raise this very, very pale and clean Kingsbarns up to all of your good health. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. I hope that you have a fantastic week up until next Thursday, where I'll be sitting here for another vPub session. Looking forward to hanging out with all of you again. Until then, I'll raise this glass and remind you all that you are very dearly loved. Thank you for hanging out with me for another vPub tonight. Thank you for all your support. It's wonderful to have you here. I can't wait to raise a glass with you in person soon. But until next week, Slanchava. Night night.